What was it meant to be?
No. I mean, she had a degree in administrative, like law enforcement administrative. And mine's in IT, computer networking. Yeah. No, she was already working for TSC. All she did was transfer. Like, oh well, game this goes.
Okay. Good afternoon, or good evening, actually. I guess.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone. I was going to say good afternoon, but it's more like a good evening, especially on a Friday afternoon, Friday night. Thank you all for being here. Laredo, I think there's like 13 of you. Welcome to Classroom Management 2. Second part, we're going to continue where we left off, working with the different aspects of classroom management, not only what situations you may encounter, but actually how you can address them. And the big word for today is really de-escalation. De-escalation, folks. The reason I bring that up is because many times how we respond to a situation might actually escalate it. And it's so easy to respond in a way that the student perceives it as, okay, now I'm being humiliated, now I'm being challenged, and this is the actual student thinking this, okay? And remember, they really don't have limits set. Their maturity level is not there, so they don't see the repercussions of their actions. They just know that somebody disrespected them and they're gonna do something about it because they're not going to lose face, okay? So the reason I bring that up is because there have been instances where the adult, the professional, kind of loses sight of that and lets certain emotions kick in. And it is easy. It is easy because we're all human. We all, get insulted when somebody brings something up, or maybe we're a very shy type. I've had people that are so shy, they really don't want to say much. So from the very beginning of my first session with you all, I start saying, okay, we're going to use our teacher voice. We're going to use our teacher voice. Because throughout the sessions, I'm expecting everyone to talk and get comfortable. And by the looks of it, the first time you all came up here, you all were very comfortable. The fact that you clapped, not all cohorts clap when people come up here. So I took that as a good sign. Everybody's comfortable coming in. You don't have assigned seats, yet you all sit in the same place. That's to your comfort level. That's fine. So today's session, really, the word is de-escalation. We're going to be focusing on that. We're also going to be covering a couple of documents. Everybody has this in their Padlet. I just went ahead and made some copies. Some of us like to touch the papers and make notes and write, and if you doodle if you have to, but at least you're reading it. The first document that I printed out here is dress code for secondary students from a local district, okay? This is what the parents get. This is not the code of conduct, it's just a little brochure, just as a heads up. This is the dress code that the students are supposed to follow. So we're gonna be looking at this more closely, discussing it, and sharing some thoughts. The second document we're gonna be working with, and this is one that I really have enjoyed for a few years. Not only have I worked with the book and the techniques, I've actually worked with the techniques in a middle school, and to the point that we wanted everyone to be aware of the different techniques that can be used and how they can be addressed with the students. The book itself is called Teach Like a Champion. Mr. Douglas Lemoe compiled them. What you're gonna find, and I'm sure you all started reading them as you were doing your pre-work, I don't know if you realized, these are not out of this world, earth-shattering strategies. I didn't think they are. They're simple enough, but we all need to be reminded of them and use them with consistency. Somebody compiled them and made them into a book. This happens to be the book with the DVD and all the videos, and you can find the videos on YouTube. And all the examples. I've seen the examples being used in the classroom. We had our teachers at our middle school each take one of the techniques and literally act it out for the other teachers. It was a sharing experience, And the teachers really got into it because they shared what they read about the strategy, but also how they perceived it and how they could use it in their classroom. So those of you that got to read or go over the 49 techniques, these are extracted from the actual book. And the DVD has all the videos, but you can also find a lot of them on YouTube. So we'll be working with these also. Has anybody ever heard of Teach Like a Champion?
I have that book.
You have it? Great, great, great. What has been your experience with it?
I know specifically there's a couple of them that are really, really good.
Mhm.
Like beginning with the end in mind.
Mhm.
You know, it's where like when I had my classroom, the goal was to have a specific number of students be able to achieve a certain curriculum completion, and that was their goal. And aside from having that as a goal, they received an incentive for achieving that goal.
Yeah. And beginning with the end in mind, the strategy itself is like, let the students know what's going to happen. It goes back to Mr. Wong. By now, I'm sure you've seen the video and read about it, read about him. Bless you. A lot of these strategies, folks, are not the type that they're not very complicated. But you do have to be aware of them, okay? How many of you were aware of road rage before it became popular?
Sorry, what?
Road rage.
Oh, road rage.
So nobody experienced road rage before it was actually labeled road rage?
I'm sure people
Yeah, right?
experience it.
Yeah.
Okay, but all of a sudden, now it's official. Now it's road rage. Before it was just a crazy guy screaming at you because you cut him off. But now it's got a label. Now it's official. Well, a lot of these strategies, they're great strategies. Some people call them different things, but now they're labeled according to this author. And he did a great job of labeling them, and now people are using them. So I always use the example of road rage because there's very few original ideas. Very few, folks. I mean, if you can think of one, I'd like to hear it. Because in education, there's a cycle. In education, there's a lot of cycling that happens. What was popular in the 60s about certain memorization, about teaching a certain way, disappears for a while, and then it comes back. There's a lot of cycles. So I share that with you because you have to choose what's best for you, your style, and what's going to work with your students. So although these strategies are wonderful, they make sense. Some of them may not work for you because that's not your style. I have my favorites. I think you said a couple of them you use consistently. I have my favorites that I like, that I enjoy because they make sense to me. Okay, so we're going to be covering those. A couple other things. I don't have a PowerPoint this time, but I am going to point back to the audios. Did you all get to hear the audios? Snippets in the Padlet? Okay, these are just simple audios. I'm sure some of you have heard similar things. By the same token, there's the other version of praise. And I included them on purpose. I wanted you to, we're gonna have a little discussion on those audios. And Laredo, feel free to jump in anytime, by the way, with any questions. And then of course, there is another T-test section, but I didn't print it out this time. Okay, so as we get started, I'd like you to, on a piece of paper, and with your colleagues, I know there's one group right there, all three of you can discuss, that group of three, that group of two, that group of two. I want you to document or jot down, each one of you, please, I want you to jot down a positive discipline experience that is very memorable to you, that you can still recall the details of. One positive experience with discipline, and then of course one negative. And the reason I want you to do it is because many times we focus on the negativity of disciplining. We have to remember that there's also a positive, how you can spin it to make a child understand that it's not about punishment, it's about correcting something for their benefit, so that they can learn from that and not repeat their mistake.
And does that have to be the educational or personal or life?
Well, ideally, if you experienced it or you heard about it in a classroom, if you haven't, then also as a person, there are instances that you might have a disciplining, a positive event versus a negative event. So I'd like you to take about 2 minutes, jot it down, but also discuss them with your colleagues that right there in your team, because you're going to be sharing them. Okay? But you're not going to be sharing your own. You're going to be sharing the one that was shared with you. Okay? I want you to explain, the other person. This is a good sharing experience, guys, because when you can explain what you just heard and elaborate on it, based on the discussion you had, that means you're able to convey that message and give your spin on it too. Okay? So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. If you're in Laredo, jot them down, put them on the chat. A positive experience and a negative experience. Okay? We're going to do 3 minutes. Online timer. Something that's very memorable. No names, please. No names. Start with a positive. That's a good sign.
Start with a negative. I always like getting bad news first, then the good news.
That's why I turned it around.
It's like a compliment section. Isn't that good?
You could be in your childhood, it could be in right now.
Well, the thing, I mean, it's gonna hurt. You know, that
I heard that one.
I've heard that. I think everyone's heard that one.
I mean, I guess.
Okay, the question is, did you ever revert back to that? Then it's a positive. You learned something.
For Laredo, once again, the activity is that you need to come, please share, jot down on the chat, a positive discipline experience and also a negative discipline experience. We want to make sure we get both perspectives. Many times we so focus on the negative, we forget about the positive ones. Locally, they are discussing it amongst themselves and they'll be sharing it with the whole group.
I told him, you continue, so he got the disciplinary sentences. Afterwards, he still continued. And encouraged to give detention. I gave him his detention paper. And he felt that it was a joke, so he started drawing on him. Inappropriate things. Could you go a little bit from the second?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So, get back and show your mom what she told me. I knew his mom. She came by after school. She said, no, he didn't give me any paper. She didn't say that he had detention or anything. She just said he's going to have double detention because of this. And then I showed her the paper. And from that point on to the rest of the year, I didn't have any issues. So in other words, I guess with him, it was more like the lines of not your friends are really serious. You shouldn't be drawing stuff like that. I never had any problems with it. I mean, it was a negative and a positive. It was a positive outcome. A resolution, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
The discipline where
That one's awesome. I've had so many
I'll let you a couple more seconds to wrap it up.
I had to do it over and over.
Man, I think most of this here was good.
No, and I was reverting back to the same thing.
See, that's a negative concept.
Yeah, I was the only boy in the family.
well, I witnessed something
Ah.
negative
Makes sense.
where the director
So there's a better way.
But then again, I think
everybody needs to go inside.
it would hit me.
Things that range.
So that makes sense. Yeah, how do you get in trouble?
No, somebody got in trouble. She got in trouble. They never got in. They got yelled at. But I was.
That's negative.
Okay, a couple more seconds. I still see some chatter. Here's some chatter. Laredo, please feel free to share in the chat. We do want to read some of those positive or negative discipline situations. Okay. Really? Wow. Maybe you witnessed it. It doesn't have to be towards you. Maybe you witnessed a teacher handling a situation very positive to correct someone.
And before I started working with
I have my.
You should have seen that.
and I worked 10 years in the BI.
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, this will be it.
Well, that's supposed to be part of that one. It's positive, you know, it doesn't feel like it, but it actually comes down to it. And that's the whole point of this exercise. Many times we don't realize that our experiences, you know, impact us now. I mean, now you're gonna
Does that one of those positive behaviors? Would it be when the student is put, like, say, on a behavioral plan, and let's say, for instance, if they are able to control themselves for the entire week, they get
word all week long. They get it's positive behavior change. No.
Now you gotta remember how first time talking back to
Yeah.
when they had
That's true.
Okay, we're gonna bring it back, right here.
he was a
Anybody from Laredo that wants to share, so we can get started. Anybody from Laredo, John? Laredo sharing?
He would leave the school.
No, not yet. Okay, Laredo, make sure you share. Okay, I'm gonna before I let you all get rolling with it and get to share, I'm gonna share mine. And this is one of the most memorable, positive discipline situations that I had. I was in a middle school, and this gentleman, and one of the students, I just have the habit of saying gentleman. This gentleman walked in late, and now I'm going to describe the gentleman. Okay, he was about 16, but you know, about this tall, dressed very loosely, loose clothing, you know, suspiciously loose. You know, they're not supposed to wear loose clothing because of weapons and all that. Tattoos all over the place, you know, a couple tears. I still don't know what those mean, you know. I've asked, they haven't told me. But you could tell he had a very colorful life, okay? By the same token, he had been, you know, I found out as I researched him beforehand that, you know, had seen his parents get killed. I mean, it was a bad situation. So he walks in, and he's already late. He makes it to the cafeteria. One of those kids that didn't get breakfast at home, and you know, he's walking in, and they're already shutting down, cleaning up, and all that. So the manager's like, "Sorry, you're late. It's already closed." So he, you know, he storms out of the cafeteria. I just happened to be walking by the hallway, kind of ran into him. "Hey, how's it going?" Starts telling me, "Well, you know, this guy doesn't want to, you know, there's no breakfast. You know, I was up late last night." So you could tell he was already not in the right state of mind. You could tell. So, okay, come with me. Let's go get some breakfast. So I go over to the cafeteria manager, and I say, "Just hold on right there. I'll be right back." And I tell the manager, "Look, I know you have extra stuff because I always see people walking out of here with a taco, you know, after breakfast is over. So I know there's stuff here. I need to avoid a situation. I need to make sure he's okay. I need to make sure he goes in the classroom, and I need to make sure he learns something today. If this is what's going to help him a little bit, I need to take care of it." And okay, Mr. Rivera, you know, once I clarified with him, and we got him the breakfast. He ate it very quickly. He didn't say much. He was eating fast. But then, you know, I walked him over to his class. I'm not saying he had the best day of his life, but nobody got hurt. He didn't assault anybody that day.
that
You know, and that was, you know,
Mm.
I could have busted him for being in the hallway. You know, he could have gotten in trouble for that. He just got there, and I would have ruined his day had I approached him differently. And that happens, folks. That happens because many times, as administrators, we're in a rush, and all we see is a kid in the hallway. But sometimes you have to listen to what's going on, and you don't want them to make it a habit either. And I had a talk with him about that, and yes, he still did it a couple more times, but at least in that kind of situation, because that was a very challenging school, we had to work with the students to some extent. And if all it took was the taco, breakfast taco and milk to get him to the classroom, and at least he had something in his stomach, that helped a lot. Couple months later, same kid walks over to me, Mr. Rivera, I have a situation, you know, I'm gonna have to beat up that guy over there. I go, okay, so what's going on? Well, he's making fun of my cousin. My cousin, special ed, sir, and you know, I can't let this guy be talking and bullying my cousin. So I'm gonna have to kick him around a little bit. I go, okay, hold on. Let me talk to the guy, explain to him who he's harassing, and that way we avoid any situations. Why don't you wait over here in the parent center, or you know, with the parent liaison or something. So I go and talk to the bully. I go, look, I haven't seen anything. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're doing it. All I'm gonna tell you is this. That guy right there, the one you heard bullying around, his cousin's this guy. Do you really wanna get into something with this guy? No, sir, I don't want any trouble. Like, just telling you right now, if you're doing it, you better cut it out, because this guy's ready to take care of it. And that was it. Sometimes you have to be straightforward with them, but the fact that my superstar was actually, and I thanked them at the end when I went over back. I go, you know, thank you very much for letting me know. At least you had enough sense to let me know. I took care of it. He's not gonna bother your cousin anymore, and you will not get in trouble. You don't get in trouble. Your cousin doesn't get in trouble. That guy doesn't get in trouble. We're okay, right? Yeah, we're okay, sir. So at least they had he had the sense to do that, because he was ready, and he was a type that really didn't care. If he was gonna beat up the guy to help his cousin out, that was fine with him, because he was doing something honorable. He was taking care of his special ed cousin. In his mind, he was doing the right thing. You see when things like that get interesting, and it's so easy to complicate things as an adult. Sometimes we see more black and white, but sometimes you have to work with it, have those discussions. Did it take a little bit of time for me to discuss it? And, you know, yeah, it took a little bit of time, but it was worth it, because at least I knew that day nobody got hurt. He didn't jump on anybody. I didn't have to call the police on him, because had he touched the bully or beat up the bully, now we have to deal with the police, deal with the record, get arrested, deal with the paperwork to back. See, that would have cost me about 5 hours of work. Couple minutes versus 5 hours. And I'm just not talking about the administrative perspective. I'm talking about the fact that at least that moment or that day, he saw somebody trying to help him out without, you know, at least that. And some of these students do need to see that. Remember what I told you yesterday? No child is born a bad apple. They're not born like that. Something happened. I mean, obviously this one has gone through a lot, and he's probably, it's been 8 years. He's probably like in his 20s now. I'm sure he's in his 20s. Yeah. If I ever run into him, you know, at least hopefully he can remember me in a good light, you know. We have a question from Mr. E.G.
He's sharing.
He's sharing, okay. Mr. E.G., thank you for sharing. Recently, an eighth grader was being disruptive in my class, and I asked to speak with him outside to figure what was going on. Usually the kid is an outstanding individual, but not that day. He walked out saying he just wanted out of the class. I let him go to the office. Of course, I got the call over the intercom that the office was requesting a referral, but I did not have anything to complain about. Next day, I spoke to the parent in front of him and happily took him back in class. He was having a bad day. Okay, so he was an outstanding individual, one of those good kids, for some reason, was having a bad day. Some of these children, remember, they're going through divorce, they're going through fighting, they're going through hormones, they're going through the girlfriend, the boyfriend. In elementary, they're witnessing things at home that maybe they shouldn't be witnessing. So, yeah, thank you for sharing, Eduardo. That's gonna happen, folks. There's going to be people, good children, that have a bad day. They get bad news, something's going on, you know. I told you about my keys, right? Everything's cool. I got the package the next day, got to go into my house again, and everything was fine. No need to freak out. So think of it that way. You know, you're going to have children that cannot handle certain things, and the first thing they do, they either start shutting down, or they start acting up, or sometimes they're just they're having a bad day, and the child that usually bothers them, and they don't mind, comes in on that day to bother them, and this time they're gonna mind. Okay. Anybody else from Laredo want to share before we get started with this group sharing here locally?
Yes.
Oh, we have one more. Okay, great. So obviously Laredo is, you know, just like everywhere else, positive and negative experience. Thank you for sharing that positive one, Eduardo. Those are the ones that I find very memorable.
Thank you.
Nope. And it's coming. Anything? Okay, we'll come back. We'll come back around for that one. So who would like to share first? Which table? Because I know you started sharing with each other. Who wants to go first?
What about me?
Saved by the video signal. Okay, because this is what about is a negative experience I had was in recess in elementary. And a friend of mine and I were both punished by the PE teacher for playing with sand. She was clearly talking to the both of us, and she was constantly shifting her gaze between the two of us. So obviously, I sat in the corner with my friend for the whole class. Then, when class was over, she yelled at me asking, "Why didn't you take part in class today?" I told her it was because she punished me too, but she said it was only my friend. Okay? So she had me write, "Why didn't I play in PE?" 500 times.
Jesus.
500 times. Why didn't I play in PE? Man, that's 3,000 words. Yeah, 3,000. To this day, I do not get that. I do not get that woman. Although, from what I heard, obviously,
That's a negative experience.
obviously, it hasn't been let go of, right? The experience. Although, from what I heard, nobody, not even the other teachers, really liked her. It never really left me. And you know, I'm glad you point that out, Mr. Olivares, because those experiences do remain with you. They do. You know how you always remember the first time you got a speeding ticket? You always remember the time that the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded? You remember? Those are very memorable experiences. There's an emotion attached to that memory. Well, being humiliated, being punished, being spanked, being told something, those memories last. So I was sharing with a gentleman that it's so easy to come up with the negative experiences, but it's difficult to come up with the positive ones. And that's why I like to share this with you all, because I want you to think of that. Have it very clear in your mind that how you perceive or how you handle the discipline in a positive manner, that will also be memorable. We're trying to change things here, folks.
Have another one.
Okay, Raquel, man, Laredo is really stepping up, guys.
More than us.
Positive, thank you. My teacher asked me to help out another student with her classwork because she did not understand her classwork. That made me feel good knowing that I was understanding the lesson. Since the teacher asked me to help the other student, okay, very, very straightforward. It was a positive experience, not exactly a discipline situation, but it was obviously memorable, thank you. Negative, when the teacher hit me on my head, is this the same teacher? I'm just asking. When the teacher hit me on my head with her ring, oh yeah, I remember, because I was not understanding how to hold my pencil. This was in first grade. I will never forget that. I still remember the teacher, her name, and the ring she was wearing.
Cops.
You know, it happens, folks. The rings, the rulers, anything like that is very memorable. Being, you know, being like, what is it called? A sape? A sape? Yeah, those are memorable. And, you know, this is first grade. And we're talking about a 20-something-year-old. I'm assuming, I'm not gonna. But in first grade, it's still memorable. That hitting in the head. It happens, folks. Thank you for sharing. And interesting. I hope there were two different teachers, but then again, you never know. Something I was going to point out is we have somebody in the room that struggled to see a positive experience. Right? You struggled a little bit, but then once they started discussing, and I started discussing with them, it's like, oh yeah, that is a positive. So think of it like, I guess I'm just one of those optimists. You know, I see the good in everything, and I know that can get annoying to some of my friends, but that's okay. I mean, you know, notice any wrinkles. It really helps to be an optimist. You don't stress out as much, okay?
It's low-key.
It's low-key, yes. So who wants to start with a positive and negative? Remember, you're going to be sharing what you picked up on from your colleagues, okay?
Oh,
Go for it.
At my work, it's like an after-school program. Priority is homework, and then after that, we do gym or games and stuff. Well, we had a student. She so happy, the happiest little girl ever, and one day she was running around in the gym without her shoes on. We have a policy, you have to wear shoes. And she's like, okay. 5 minutes later, she has them off again. So I pull her off to the side, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Why don't you have your shoes on? She was, because they don't fit me and they hurt, you know? So I could have, you know, easily, you know, reprimanded her for not wearing the shoes, but it turns out that at home, Mom was selling her shoes and was, you know, leaving her pairs from years before. So it was one of those things that I'm glad I didn't punish her, because it would have made her day even worse, you know? You asked a simple question. Why do you keep taking off your shoes?
Yeah.
And it's so easy to, you know, get after them and say, like, you know, put your shoes back on, or, you know, it's for safety reasons, or, because my first thought when you were talking about shoes, I was thinking safety. But I understand what, you know, and children will tell you the things that happen at home, the things they go through, you know. And I'll be honest, I've heard of instances like that with jackets, with shoes, and you find teachers that run to Walmart that evening and bring shoes for the kids. It's crazy, you know, because it breaks your heart. A lot of times it does, and you know, as teachers, we just think about our my first thought, to be honest, is about my own children and how I would feel with my own children in a situation like that. So we tend to be, you know, there's a lot of blessings here, so you tend to think like that and share. Thank you. That is a positive discipline situation, you know, because it involved you asking and her being honest with you. Yes, sir. How about you?
For me, it was not so much me. It was more of a team effort, where we had one student who he was, I guess you could call him, he didn't have any like behavioral deficiencies or anything. He didn't have ADD, anything like that. It was more along the lines of he was a baby of his family, so anything he wanted, he got his way.
Okay.
He had a tendency of running out of classrooms midway because he didn't like being in there.
Okay.
Specifically the math classroom, because he hated math. He
didn't agree with the curriculum?
Well, he struggled with it, and so what he would do, he would get super upset and he would run out of class. He would run out of class, run out of the buildings, and it would get to the point where you'd have to call in the coaches, someone go get him because he's going to leave the campus.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did, we set him up on a behavioral intervention plan.
Yes.
What would happen is, if he behaved himself all week, did his work, was a role model for all of the other students, he would, I think they would give him ice cream on Fridays. Yeah. And, you know, that worked wonders for a couple weeks. Then they took him off of the intervention plan.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm glad you mentioned he was asked to behave, but they were also very specific. Do not run out of the classroom. Do not, you know, whenever you might some of you might be involved in behavior intervention plans. Your students might walk in and say, please sign here that I didn't curse today, or that I didn't use foul language, or that I didn't hit anyone today. and you sign off because, okay, today he didn't hit anybody. Those are those are the positive behavior plans, and they're behavior charts.
Yeah.
So the whole point of that is at the end of the day, they take it back to their teacher and say, look, I didn't hit anybody today.
You would take it to the, what are the APIs?
Yes.
He was the one that was in charge.
Oh, okay, the assistant principals.
Yeah.
And then, you know, different schools, different districts, they might take it back to special ed teacher, they might take it back to their administrator, but at least it's a way of tracking them and also making them accountable for themselves. They have to take it to the teacher and say, please sign. And the teacher signs, but if the child had a bad day, the teacher has to write. You know, you have to be honest also. Student kept interrupting, or student would not sit down. Because otherwise, if they don't see that honesty and those facts on the sheet, they're going to think that everybody just signs off on them. So it's good. It's good that the students understand, and those things are explained to the students beforehand. You don't just say, okay, here from now on, you just gotta get your teacher to sign this. A teacher or an administrator goes over the plan with the student, goes over the behaviors that are trying to be fixed, and the rewards or the, you know, what'll happen if they meet all the expectations. And in this case, you know, ice cream, and if that worked for him, wonderful. Did it regress after they took him off the chart? I'm just curious.
So that was in the beginning of the school year, because the year before it was the same issue. So later on in the school year, like around maybe February or March, he started doing it again.
Okay.
So it reverted back to it, and they had to put it on something a little more permanent.
Okay. There you go. And they had to make adjustments. Okay. Last one for that team, that group.
Well, we had that conversation that I couldn't think of one, but right now when they were talking about it, I used to work for a BI unit.
Yeah.
And we actually had a kindergartner. This was years and years ago.
Kindergarten.
And he had a really bad behavioral attitude. He was always cussing, shooting the fingers, spitting, kicking. So again, they put him on a chart.
Yeah.
And they would give him caught being good tickets. And every week he would have to go in, depending on how many tickets he had, and he would get to buy stuff.
Okay.
And it did really, really well. He did really well the rest of the school year. Well, I ran into him about 4 years ago.
As an
adult.
Oh wow.
And now he's a diamond dealer for Zales.
Wow.
He said that if it hadn't been for that BI unit, who knows where he would have ended up.
Because, you know, he had a legitimate issue.
Oh yeah.
You know,
he was coming.
it was
from
a
very broken
diagnosed
family.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine back in the day that they didn't. They just sent them to the back rooms of the schools, way in the back, separate portable, separate buildings.
Well, back
not
then,
anymore.
Back then is when they used to use the padded room.
Ah, the padded.
So whenever they get out of control, they would put them in a padded room.
Yeah.
And they would just close the door and let them go.
Some schools still have little rooms about this big. That's how big they are. It's a little room, and go ahead and wait there. Go ahead and wait there.
Focus room?
The focus room. Yeah, they're having to refocus. I mean, you know, they relabel the idea. But yeah, but that's a very good point. And thank you for sharing. And you know what I like is the fact that you shared that you ran into him and what he has become. A lot of these programs, folks, the whole point is to try and help the students, not necessarily fix them, because some of these students may not be fixable. There are certain things that cannot be fixed, but they can be worked on so the student can learn to live with it and compensate and become a productive person. Thank you for sharing. How about y'all?
On my part, when I was a kid in kindergarten, me and 2 other kids, we left the classroom. We were next to the PE area, so we just left and were racing each other. It was there for like 15 minutes. We got tired and went back in. Went in, continued to play like nothing happened. And then one by one, we called us up.
The teacher
And
called each
so
one.
then it was my turn. And he's like, where did you go? I said, well, we went outside the PE area, we were racing. Why did you go out? Oh, we just wanted to race. You scared me when I couldn't see where you were. Don't do it again. What was it? I didn't know it again.
It was more of a discussion. Was it a female teacher or male teacher?
It was Mr. Science. I still remember his name. He later on, my senior year.
That sounds familiar, by the way.
My senior year, he was teaching at Rivera.
That's why.
My senior year,
That's why.
96.
Yes.
I ran into him at a competition in Kingsville.
Yes.
And I saw him, I was like, are you Mr. Science? He was much thinner at that point. He's like, are you Mr. Science? And he looks at me, Luis?
Curly
I was
hair,
like, are you
beard?
kidding me? Yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
He remembered me.
Wow.
From kindergarten to senior year.
Whoa.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. You run into your first graders in 12th grade, they look the same. Kids look the same to us. And I've run into my first graders at Peace High School. I ran into my first graders as seniors. They're just bigger. They look the same, but they're just bigger.
I was shocked.
But you know, that was an interesting approach. Straight out asked you, where were you? What were you doing? Don't do it again. There's no ambiguity there. You know, he was clear, and I'm sure you all obviously you didn't do it again. So that it didn't require freaking out, referral, spanking. It didn't require any of that. It just required bringing it to your attention and correcting the action. Okay, that's an interesting example. Thank you, sir.
Good or bad?
Whichever one you choose.
I think the one I remember the most. I mean, I remember two because the good one I always send her flowers on Teacher Appreciation Day.
Oh.
I send her flowers. She was my
To this day.
Yeah, she was my 5th grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I send her flowers every year. But anyways, the bad one was I remember going to what's the school by the zoo, not Shark, but
Cummings.
not Cummings. It was an elementary school. Hasaka, is it Hasaka?
Yeah, there's one around that area.
Or
Sharp. I mean, there's so many of them. Right?
Okay, I remember I went to Hasaka before my aunt took me out and took me to Sharp. But while I was there, like not even a day, like 2 days. And I remember my aunt.
We're gonna beep out the names, right? Of the schools.
No, I don't know the name. I don't know the name at the time. This is '89. 1989. I remember I was in 1st grade, and I remember going to the lunchroom and my aunt would make me lunch. Right, it was the first time I ever had lunch ever made for me like that. And my aunt made me a lunch, and I went. And I was excited because I was like, wow, I've never had this happen before. So she packed me a lunch, and I remember sitting down by myself because I was a new kid. I sat down on the table, and I was about to like open it. I was just sitting there, and I remember the principal, right, because he was in a suit. And I remember he walked up to me, and he goes, like he started yelling at me. He was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I remember looking at him, and I didn't say anything. He's like, "What's that right there?" And I was like, "It's my food." And he was like, "Go throw it in the trash." So he made me throw all my food away in the trash. And I remember I told my aunt, like, when school was over. And I never understood why he did that. And I just remember my aunt, like, doing this in the car, like, and, like, I never, like, that same day I left, but I'll never forget him, like, making me stand up to throw. Like, he made me empty my, like, I remember I had a brownie, a sandwich, a banana.
You remember what you didn't taste?
I didn't even.
You didn't even get to eat.
I didn't even.
He never told you why he did that?
That's his story.
I never knew why. Like I stood up and then I just emptied my whole lunch and he made me sit down.
Okay. You know.
That's
I mean, I can tell you why my assumption, the only thing I can think of is that obviously food was being served and you weren't with the program. You know, you weren't doing what everybody else. And back in the day, folks, it was all about standardizing. You know, you had to do everything just like everybody else. You had to do the same thing. Not that it justifies it, because that's a very negative approach to handling that situation. Run into him just like you did. But yeah, you might want to. I mean, hopefully you catch him at a Stripes or something, so you can make him get rid of his taco.
Just like smacking his
You know, you remember what was in the bag?
I mean, it didn't frighten me. I just.
No, it was more like you were probably surprised.
I was like,
yeah.
I didn't get it. Like, you know, like I was more like that because I was a funny kid. I was always joking and stuff. So to me, I was like.
It was like, where'd that come from?
Yeah, but it kind of like.
And it was day one, you said.
Day one.
Day one. Okay.
Well, his first day at school, right?
That was my first.
And last.
First day. It was my first day of school.
Okay. Wow, but it wasn't your last day.
It was my last day.
At that.
Okay, so that was it.
That was it. I went to Sharp the rest of the year.
Interesting. Well, you know,
Blame him.
that is an interesting experience. You remember him, obviously, and, you know, what can I tell you? Things like that happen. And,
I mean, he was older. I mean, I remember he was older. He was kind of wrinkly, you know. He's probably nerdy.
To a kid, right? It's like,
but you know,
I mean, that was
those are the type of experierices that.
But the reason why I remember is because that was my first time ever having a packed lunch.
Homemade, yeah.
I'll never forget. I was excited, and then he.
Oh, yeah, and they're so strict nowadays. They're so strict with the lunchroom because of federal law. I would venture to say that was not involving federal law and food of minimal nutritional value. Okay, that was more of a you know, just administrator, you know, trying to prove the point. Nowadays, you have to be careful in the lunchroom for other reasons. So children are told, you see that bag of Skittles? You cannot share that bag of Skittles.
Oh yeah.
It's a legality now.
Oh, yeah,
I
they
took lunch to my son to a middle school, and I'm known well there because I'm a presenter. Oh, how you doing, Mr. Olvera? Oh, I just brought lunch. My son Snapchatted me if I could, you know. Oh, sure. So I brought him a Whataburger, you know, orange stripes, Whataburger, you know, just like that. And he says, do you have a container you can put it in? And I go, no, it's in a bag, and you know. Well, and the lady was very antsy about it. I go, why? What's going on? Well, if you leave it like that, he's got to eat over here in this office. If you bring it in a lunchbox, he can eat in the general population. And I said, well, that's interesting. And I mean, I wasn't going to be a jerk about it. So my son came over and, hey, how's it going? Oh, I brought you lunch. Oh, thanks, Dad. I go, well, they have a procedure here that if I bring it like this, you have to eat it back here in the room. If you bring it in a lunchbox, you can go and join your friends. So for this time, you'll have to, and he's like, oh, that's okay. You know, I'll eat the burger and then finish up and then I can go back to.
Whataburger friends.
Yeah, exactly. Whataburger friends with a cafeteria pizza. Yeah, so it wasn't a difficult choice for my son, but it was interesting to me how they explained it to me, and I didn't want to. I was in a rush, to be honest, so I wasn't going to discuss it too much. But I found it interesting that one campus allows it because a couple days before, I had taken Chick-fil-A to my daughter. I managed to get away. I don't do this regular, guys, okay? I don't have that kind of time. But they allowed it. She picked it up, thanks, Dad, and then she went back with her class walking towards the cafeteria. So I found that interesting. So, you know, something to look into. I'm going to look into that. Not as a pest of a parent, but more of I want to become informed as to what is the regulation, and I'll respect it, of course. But the inconsistency doesn't help. So you see, as a parent, if you see that kind of situation, I'm cool with it because I'm part of the system. But another parent might say, well, this school allowed it and that school didn't, and that's where you have a problem with inconsistency.
Yeah,
in
because like
the
at our
classroom.
campus, the students at our campus, they walk in with Little Caesars pizza and they eat in the cafeteria.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it just depends on the campus.
So what was the reason that they couldn't share Skittles?
Oh, the food of minimal nutritional value. Yeah. That's
Like we had a policy.
Or Takis. If
they can't
you've
take
ever
Takis.
seen kids with Takis,
Any hot Cheetos.
Hot Cheetos, those are amazing. They're addictive. Not only addictive, but the kids.
Everyone brings their own anyway.
The kids crowd around the kid with Takis, and therefore, they're gonna have to share it if they're friends. But then the cafeteria manager, like, he can't share. There's no sharing because there's certain regulations out there, federal guidelines that the cafeteria has to abide by. So it's kind of awkward for people, but I mean, I was fine with it. I'd say, okay, well, enjoy your Whataburger in the back. When you're done, join your friends. Oh, okay, and everything was fine. But I found the inconsistency a little bit concerning because that's how parents can make an issue out of things. Same thing with your classroom. If you allow one student to do something and not the other, kids catch on and they start talking to the parents, and the parent comes in, well, you allowed that kid and then you didn't allow this one. So that's where consistency is vital when you have your plan, your rules inside the classroom. Even if it's your I think the gentleman called them the very intelligent young man that had a bad day.
An outstanding.
Outstanding student. Even if it's your outstanding student, guys, if he breaks a rule, you have to follow through with it because they're watching. The other kids are watching, and they'll catch on. Well, that's his favorite. Well, that's her favorite. So be very careful about that. The interesting experience kind of sparked a conversation there. Thank you, sir. Ladies.
Well, I remember a negative experience when I was in the 6th grade. We started those accelerated reader tests on the computer.
Yes.
And a lot of students found it easy to take students using other students' information. Like one would read a book and the other one would read another book, and then they would take.
Oh.
So
Collaborative learning.
Well, of course.
See how I see everything in a positive light?
Yes, double the points.
I can't help it. I'm an optimist.
I mean, it was just so easy, and it was just a group of students. I don't remember how many, but because of them, the whole class got punished, and it was horrible. I mean, we weren't punished just for one day. We were punished for like an entire week. Our lunch, they would say it over the intercom.
Humiliation.
It was completely humiliation, and I mean, they got to a point where, okay, stop. It was like, yeah,
we learned
you
our
got
lesson.
it. You got it. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they went to the extreme of pointing it out and pounding it in.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Set an example.
And you know, set an example, but sometimes it gets to a point that even the child will say, "Come on, I already paid. I already got in trouble. I already got my punishment." You know, and there are times that an adult will bring, remember when you did that, or don't do this, just like you did last time. You know, once you give a punishment, folks, it's a clean slate. You know, once you give a punishment, they broke a rule, okay. Now they got punished, they paid their due, back to business. There's still a student there, they're still gonna be with you for the rest of the year, most likely. You don't wanna leave any residual bad feelings, because you wanna start with a clean slate. It really does help, guys. And like I've always told you, who's the adult and who's the professional, okay? If the children cannot have that mentality because they're kids, then at least you be the one. Because if anything ever happens down the line, they'll bring it up. Retaliation. The parents love to bring up different things after the fact. Remember 2 years ago? Remember the year you said this or you did this to my kid? Things come back. We call those the filing cabinet people. They file it away and then they take it out when they need it. Be very careful with us. How about your example?
I can't really think of anything.
Positive?
Positive? I don't recall it.
Wow.
Maybe being late to class and having to write in middle school, having to write a few back and front pages of I will not be tardy. Also in athletics, people goofing around not doing what they're supposed to be doing, making everybody run laps. But that's really about it. Positive, I can't really. Wow, maybe positive.
Makes you wonder, right? I mean, you know, when you're in the classroom, when you're going to be dealing with these students, you know, think of what you bring with you and how you use it. You bring negative experiences. Are you going to learn from those and say, no, I will not be like I will not be like that for my students? I have a saying, because I've had several bosses, and I've had a lot of bosses, and I'm glad this is a closed circuit, nobody else sees this. I've had bosses that are wonderful people, but I have learned little from them. I actually learned what not to do. And I've had bosses that are good people, and I've learned a lot from because of their style and their approach. So what you bring with you into the classroom, because I sense a lot of negative experiences, learn what not to do with your students. Learn from that. And that's why I like for everybody to hear the different experiences we have just in a small group. I mean, you're a small group, and yet there's a variety of experiences along with Laredo. How about that table?
Okay, positive discipline experience that Mr. Ray went through when he was a cop back then.
Police officer.
Police.
Yeah, it's cop sounds so.
Okay, so he arrested a teenager for possession of a drug. He took him to, the teenager went to juvenile detention and he went through probation. And after the process was over, he later bumped into him, and the teenager apologized to Mr. Ray.
No,
Thanked him.
Oh.
Thanked him.
I thank
Okay.
him for changing his life.
Thank you. Wow,
It was
that's
an
heavy.
experience that he didn't want to go through ever again. And I told him, this is not for you. You don't look like the type. You know, what happened? You're a good kid and everything. So he went through the process, and I bumped into him, and he thanked me. Thank you.
Kids evolve, folks. I mean, I've seen a child go into a middle school in 6th grade looking like very preppy, very, very preppy, slacks, beige slacks with a blue shirt, very preppy. By 8th grade, he looked like Eminem. I mean, the change in his style was so apparent. His personality, his attire, everything was so different. And that took about 2.5 years. And that's how he evolved. The people he was hanging out with, the environment, the mother got divorced. I mean, it was a combination. I always tell people there's different factors. There's no one factor that causes things. It's always different factors. You know, some people call them excuses, some people call them reasons, I call them factors. Okay, how you handle it, makes a difference. So that in itself, an experience like that makes you aware of that and focuses you on the positive aspect of dealing with students.
And it made me feel good, but at the same time, bad that I had to do it. But
Yeah, it takes a toll. The bad experiences you have to deal with takes a toll. You mentioned you work with Adult Protective Services. My own sister used to work with that in Houston, and she would tell me stories about visiting the elderly, mistreated elderly, and the things she would see, children mistreating their own parents. It's sad, and the stress level is crazy. I think she lasted about a year. That was it.
It's very stressful.
Yeah. Of course, walking into certain neighborhoods in Houston didn't help. I mean, without a armed escort.
And then you have to go and
Yeah, here you go, sign here. Like,
you gotta
really?
go in.
Yeah, that's scary
You have to
stuff.
go inside the house, that's very stressful.
You have to go inside the house. And there's some homes I wouldn't want to walk into.
Even sometimes in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So those experiences, if you think about it, those experiences make you who you are, but you also learn from them when you take them in a positive light, when you learn from them. Unfortunately, there's individuals that become negative about that, and they see the bad aspect of all this, and they turn off. So you look okay. So you're still okay, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's a good sign. Other examples, so we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm going to share Ms. Mireya's experience of negative discipline, or discipline gone wrong, and that
Discipline
they
gone
were-
wrong.
Yeah.
That's the title of a book right there.
At a CCD class, and one of the kids was outside, and they were going to go inside because it might have rained, and so the kid didn't want to go inside. So the director kind of grabbed the child from the arm, and the child started screaming and called the mom. And it escalated to where the cops were called, and the director was possibly going to get arrested because of it. The good thing is that, he was trying to discipline the child and telling her, you need to come inside, but she didn't. So Celiso Fassi grabbed on, to the arm. And the good thing is that there was witnesses that saw that it wasn't to the point that the child was exaggerating. So it helped him or her, the director. But sometimes you gotta be careful how you handle, the children and who you're dealing with, because as educators we need to know what child we can manhandle or touch or.
None of them actually.
No.
We don't select which one touch. Laredo, let's clear that up.
Or you can touch or you should grab, because there's children that don't like it. There's kids that make up stories, and and then those are those that will respond positively.
And different children react differently. It's not like the whole thing, but touching. I'm glad you bring up that point. Just holding a child. Some people bruise easily, very easily. Some people don't, but certain children react. That if they're being held or led by the hand or something like that, they will make a big scandal. And others won't. Others will, okay. That happens. So know your students. You made a good point. Know your students. Also know how they're going to react. And touching is always a sensitive issue, guys. You know, and I'm just, the discipline perspective, avoid touching because it can be perceived, you know, negatively at times. I had students that would try, you know, in this aspect, they would try to hug you, and my habit was I would kind of like go like, okay, thank you very much, go back to your seats, and I would do that, thank you very much, and that was it. I never, but being a man, I had to be very careful because I taught 1st through 5th, and then I worked with middle school, and then I worked with high school, so it gets dangerous very quickly. But keep that in mind. The touching, you have to be very careful about holding them or grabbing them because your fingers, if you squeeze enough, can leave a little mark, and that can become an issue. Okay?
It's hard to see the little ones sometimes. Like by the time I know it, they're already like right next to me.
They will slam into you. They'll slam into you. They'll slam. Some of the older ones, they love rushing into the ladies, you know.
At the observations that I've been doing, little kids come and like,
and sometimes they kind of knock you off your balance.
Like,
Yeah.
It happens.
they just come and hug you out of the blue.
And I know.
You don't even see it coming.
And we don't want to seem rude or kind of, but at the same time, okay guys, thank you very much.
It happens both ways, like with the teacher
No, we
approaching
don't
the
wanna do
children.
that.
There's some teachers that I've seen that they're the ones, ay, Pablito, and they're,
Yeah, they
you know,
hug them
and
and
Yeah.
they'll take that initiative, but they're the youngest. I've never seen in middle
Yes,
school, usually
yes.
the elementary.
Yeah, I only see them
And
in
like with
elementary
first
where,
graders.
Yeah.
you know, they
My-
hug the
my
kids.
I
daughter-
got to see one in middle school that she was very huggy and with the kids, and
Yeah.
we had a talk with her about that
Yeah.
because they were very comfortable with her. She was a good teacher, solid teacher, but it was getting to a point that it was too much, and she cared for the students, and nothing ever came out of it. But we didn't want any
That
misperceptions.
dangerous, that dangerous.
Because all it takes is one, guys. All it takes is one.
I saw a
She
teacher
touched me.
that
That's
she
all it
would hug,
takes.
and she would hug sideways.
Sideways. Okay,
Nunca
mijito.
like, you know, like this.
Yes.
She's like, ay, mijito, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but I've seen
Yeah.
teachers that approach, and I was going to mention a personal experience with my daughter. She's in a wheelchair because she doesn't walk. Anyways, she doesn't like for people to approach her, even when you're talking to her.
Mhm.
She needs
Yeah,
distance.
she wanted it.
And so I switched her to a new daycare, and her teacher is Miss H, because I heard Mr. H. She's Miss H, and she's one of those teachers that, ay, mija, que, you know, whatever, you know. She tried to approach her, and my daughter freaked out, like she's, you know. And I let her because, you know, I was gonna tell her don't get close, but I said, you know, this is how she reacts.
Mhm.
To teach her that my daughter's not.
Yeah.
She's friendly. She's super sociable, butterfly. But I don't know what it is with her that
She likes her space.
She
you know.
loves her space. And if you get close, you have to tell her, I'm gonna get close, or I'm gonna give you a hug. And so it happened at Keller, because she just started. I'm sorry, I mentioned this. She started at Keller, so now they know her, you know, from last year, and so they do the what do you call it? The distance hug.
Oh, goodness.
You know, they see her in the morning and they'll do this, and sometimes she'll tell them come.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that means you go to her. But it's just, some teachers were like, oh, you know, and she's like, oh, freaking out. You know, because she doesn't
No.
like it. So that's why I sometimes tell the teachers, you know, don't approach.
Yeah, know your students.
I wish
Yeah.
that principal would have hugged me instead of going.
Okay, we're back to the. Wow.
I gotta tell you, she opened
You're
pen
gonna
first
be
month.
looking
No, but
for
you
that
know what?
person
No,
to
seriously,
teach
you know why I think
Let it
about
go,
it?
let it go.
It's because
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
teacher's name?
I'm being real with it, man. I
Okay.
didn't grow up
Exactly.
very
The one that was
I
singing, let it
didn't grow
go.
up very good.
I don't remember.
So we're gonna go back to the principal and the lunch.
There.
But I moved with my aunt and uncle, and they were well off, so I was able to have like brand name clothing and stuff, and just really nice. So I think that's what it was too.
Ah.
I looked different from everyone else there, and I was the only one sitting eating lunch too.
Okay.
So I can, you know, because it was a neighborhood there. Like,
You
BISD
feel
records.
he wanted to make a point. He
E9.
was making a point. Okay, interesting. I'm sure you'll someday not look for him, you know.
It's like 30 years ago, man. Let it go.
Let it go. Yes, ma'am.
I did an observation today, and there was a 4th grader puckering up to give the teacher a kiss.
Oh. Pucker, you know.
Yeah, he was like, and And the teacher was like, okay, good class. And he was like, but he didn't get, I mean, he kept his distance, but she just like ignored him, like, and then he came real close to me, and then I moved the other way.
Keep walking, keep walking.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
but it was real innocent.
They are, because, and you know, the funny thing is, some of them may not be getting those hugs at home for whatever reason. So that could be the only instance that they get a hug that day. And then, so, yeah, it happens. It happens. I'm trying to keep an eye on the time because I don't know how John's. How are we doing?
Yeah, 4 or 5 hours.
Okay. Okay. So I'm glad you all shared these experiences. Yeah, as you can see, there's positive and negative, but you laugh at some of them because you weren't laughing the day of, obviously, but now you laugh at it and you remember. So what's going to happen with your students? What are they going to remember about you? I mean, to be thanked years later, that's a wonderful feeling. One of the students that was here about 2 cohorts ago, she goes, I still have the penguin we made when you had us do the plaster of Paris and we did the moles. I still have it. And she's like 20 something. I'm like, okay, sure. That's memorable, you know, because as a teacher, we like to make an impact. So you're gonna make an impact either way, folks. I would hate to be considered a teacher that was not even memorable. So either you make a positive impact or a negative impact. But to be forgotten, I mean, that would be kind of sad as a teacher, to be forgotten and dismissed. You know, do you all remember all your teachers?
No, I think there's a select few.
You usually remember the good ones and the bad ones.
Yeah, like the very good ones and the very bad ones.
Yeah.
The other ones are like, well, yeah, he was there. He was just there. Okay.
I had one of my teachers throw my desk outside the classroom.
Throw it?
To have you sit over there or what?
Were you in it or?
What schools are you going to?
Were you in there at the time?
No, it was.
A lot of beeping in this episode, by the way.
Yeah, she threw me and my classmates' desk outside.
Now you're speaking figuratively, right? Threw it. She placed it outside.
No, she threw it.
She threw it. The desk was airborne.
Yeah, like she got it and like.
Okay.
Like.
Okay. Well, interesting. You know?
What were
We
you
had
doing?
to pick up all the stuff.
What did you
like-
You know that we're. You know that
What
we're
did you
painting
do?
a picture.
I was
I didn't
supposed
do
to be in
nothing.
computer lab, but we stayed in the beanbags and slept.
Oh. Okay.
So she was pissed.
That's a little
Yeah.
overreacting.
What did
Yeah.
you do? What did you do with
Slight
She was mean, though.
overreaction,
She was
you know.
mean. Like she wasn't just mean to us, but
She was probably trying to prove a point the way one of my band directors was trying to prove a point. I caught a couple of students at this middle school in the hallway, band students. You could tell they were band students, and they were walking around. I go, come here, where you're supposed to be. Band, okay, let's go. So we're walking to the band hall, and I go, Mr. So-so, these 2 your kiddos, are these yours? And because they were in the hallway, just walking around. That's all I told him. He was eating a hamburger. It was halfway done. He folded it up because he still had the paper, and he threw it in the trash can right about where you are, with a lot of emotion. I mean, just got rid of it. Super upset. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, calm down, buddy. And they were just walking. I felt bad for the kids. The kids were terrified. They, good band kids. You can tell when they're good band kids, okay? Terrified. And then he started barking at them, and I'm using the word barking. And go over there and practice with your, in the little private rooms for a band. Go practice your, I don't know, whatever instrument they had. So I go, when they left, are you okay? And he just says, yeah, they'll never do it again.
I mean.
And that was it.
The thing was with that.
That was the
teacher,
conversation.
They never did it again.
They'll
she
never
would
did
go
it
off,
again.
like real quick.
Yeah.
Like she was nice. I mean, there was times where she was like super nice,
Trigger.
and she would just like boom, like.
I call them trigger words when something triggers an emotion like
She
that.
took my Jordan cards too.
Michael.
Michael Jordan.
Oh.
Yeah, that's some-
My dad was.
See, so
That's what she was
homemade food, Michael Jordan cards. You were asking for trouble.
Yes, that was at a different school though.
You just have that look.
Was at a-
You just have that look, man.
Have that look.
But you know what? These are
here,
examples,
probably.
real examples.
But
folks.
she was old. She was old. She wasn't young.
Like
She was old,
80 or 90?
No, like
That's old. That's
Like
old.
70s.
So
She
she
was
couldn't be
pushing
that old.
70.
Nowadays, 50 is a new 30, 40 is a new 20.
She was pushing
Remember that?
70. Like she was old lady.
Okay.
You sure she was
But-
pushing 70? I mean, if you throw
I
a
know.
desk, a 70-year-old's not
Yeah,
gonna
so
be able to throw a
you're
desk.
saying a 70-year-old
Because at that age, 40 is.
At that age,
dangerous.
40 years old. Yes.
I don't know, she
But you
wasn't
know what?
70, but she was
Very
like-
memorable. You still remember your experiences. Now I'm curious about going back into those yearbooks, by the way. But anyway, we're gonna take a little break, John, since we're done with this activity. But I wanted you to share and learn from it. Okay? We're gonna take 10 minutes, guys. Laredo, thank you for sharing. We'll be back in 10.
So your teacher was able to like, she was 70, she was able to like squat 350.
Pretty much.
Exactly. She was old though. She was like wrinkly, gray. She was tall. She
Maybe
was,
she smoked a lot.
You know, most teachers get older faster.
She was kind of big, you know.
Most, not all.
It all
She
depends
was
on the
nice,
stress
though.
level, you know.
But everyone was afraid of her because she'd snap so quick. And that's what I remember. Like, she'd be super nice. We'd have fun in her class, but then she would just go off.
Those are the
like,
scarier ones because you
not
don't
on
expect
one, but she'd go on all of us, dude. It would be like,
she didn't discriminate. She
That's the type of teacher you want because they're consistent.
consistent.
With everybody.
yeah, she
Yeah.
was.
Everybody, like,
And she never gave me back my Michael Jordan cards, dude.
wow.
So we
I
have
think you're
congratulations
holding a
to
grudge
Michael
more on the
Jordan.
Michael Jordan cards than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. She's on the list, isn't she?
How many teachers you got on your list?
Honestly.
Honestly, how many teachers you got on your list?
There's a list. I can tell. There's a list, but it's
My,
okay.
my dad was a teacher administrator for 35 years, BIZ. And he taught 6th grade at Longoria.
Little school.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some of those guys are my friends.
Oh,
And they know he's my dad.
yes.
So
I'm sure they have
the
stories.
thing that they remember is back then he used to paddle himself inside the class
Oh.
and do the ruler thing
Yeah.
and throw the erasers if you're not. So
Oh,
that's
so
how
you
they
weren't
remember
focused.
my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because he was strict.
Okay.
And that same
But
lady,
that was 35 years ago.
Yes.
that same lady would make us sit outside. There was this courtyard, and that courtyard, the sun would be blasting there, and she'd make us go sit in the sun. Dude, yeah, I'm talking about like an hour, dude. And then she'd come outside. Okay, you can come inside now. And then my principal would be looking at us like,
He's passing by.
he'd watch
He was
us,
just passing by.
He's like, cute, that kid.
Oh,
and we're baking, dude. Like,
And that's one of the reasons why a lot of laws have gone into effect, and a lot of laws are now implemented more. Because I mean, there were laws
yeah, that
back
was,
then,
that was, yeah.
but there was a lot of turning around, a lot of turning a blind
nothing
eye.
happened there.
Now, that's not gonna fly anywhere. I mean, little things come up very quickly, and what they used to get away with, it's not possible anymore. Not especially with phones, and students speak out more, parents speak out more. So the best thing to do is have your discipline, have your rules, be consistent, and that way they can't use anything against you. Like, why did you punish my son? Well, he broke a rule. That's the punishment. That's it.
that's a millennium generation.
Yeah. That and just being consistent is a big effect, because if they find out you're not, they'll use it against you. Okay.
And one teacher that I remember was my 5th grade teacher, and I remember, I was going through some tough times and stuff, and she was the only one that actually went out and we talked one-on-one and like wanted
She
to know what
approached
was
it.
up. She reached out to me, and ever since then I've always,
Oh, wow.
that kind of always made me feel like she cares, like she cared about me. Even to
She's
this
she's
But
retired, of course.
No, she's still teaching.
She's still teaching. Wow.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I don't know if you know Sandra Hockaby.
Yes. Actually, I know her.
I love that lady, man.
Wow.
She's awesome. Like,
Wow.
I told her I got my bachelor's and my master's and everything, and she's like, what? Like, I'm that. She always tells me and my brother, because my brother had her too, and she's like, these are the two students that I.
Yeah, she's working,
Yeah, me and my brother send her flowers.
Wow.
She's awesome, man. She was.
I see her every so often when I visit elementaries, but I'm focusing on high schools now, so.
Oh, good.
But yes, yes.
I think I went to school with.
There's two of them, they're sisters.
That's his twins.
Yes. Tall.
Yeah.
Ladies.
Yeah, I went to school with with one of the Hockadays. I'm not sure.
Wow. Small world. Small world. You never know. I tell people you might end up working for somebody here. I mean, so, one of you might become a principal, and the others, the other people are working for. Or some of you might be in the interview committee trying to hire one of you all. It happens.
And it's cool because she brags about her because we got to meet her coworkers and they're like, these were troublemakers, and now they're educated.
Okay,
so that's like
think, yeah.
So it's cool, man, because it was true.
Oh. Okay. Can we share that one when everybody's back?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
One of the incentives that I used was with my first graders. Was that whoever behaved the best, they'd be able to hold my hand when they walked to class. So I just held up my hand, and they would hold my hand, and they walked to class.
So also in basketball, and the coach hit me in the face.
Pretty interesting stuff.
You don't participate.
Yeah, there's 4 certificates that you need for M7.
But it's all in the same PowerPoint.
Okay, so you click on it, right? And it takes you to one specific link. When you go to the website, there's 4 different modules that you can do. You've done one of them. You have 3.
You have to print it out.
Yeah, what I did is I printed the certificate and put it on my folder.
On your phone?
Yeah, in here. And then I uploaded the certificate.
Sounds complicated.
It's right here. Look.
4th grade.
Um,
I went super low.
That's it.
Well, that was so basically outside instead of the classroom. So
What it is?
class.
That's one of them.
Wouldn't go
You need 3 more.
to the playground and play. I would wait. What you can do?
So it says it's supposed to take you between 2 and 3 hours. I did each one.
Principal comes
I did all of it in 45 minutes.
Principal comes in and says that he saw a kid in the playground.
I know.
He was certain it's going to take a while.
It will definitely take a while, sir. So, like for instance, this one, the one that automatically takes you to that link, it's supposed to be a 3.5-hour course.
So I figured it would be disappointing. But if it was anybody, in our class, I knew it would be that one kid. So I go,
I just want to finish everything already.
wait.
Finish all the modules already. I'm good.
Take him off.
All the modules of the
The principal
videos.
pointed at me. I guess he saw me talking to him or something. But he pointed at me. And took me out to the office. I was the one. Oh. I was like, I've never been.
That one? Okay, so she uploaded all of them. So let's see. So the ones that she uploaded, when you click on the link, it takes you to the first one.
I got no business
These
kicking
are the first one.
So
And then she uploaded some more. The other ones are for the other modules. Like there's one who's asking, like for instance, this one, CDC warning will prevent suicide rates for That's a different
something on.
Which module? So anyway,
it's for a different one.
because
There's four, okay, so it's.
Yeah, dude. That's
No.
So he told my parents that like saw me kicking the playground.
Yeah, so module 7 is in it has 4 different categories, 4 different steps. So the first one is the one that you click on the link and it automatically takes you to. Then the other ones are also in
Oh man,
that website. You have
I get home and
to change the class. So if you already did that one, you go to the next one. Finish that one, get the certificate, go to the next one.
yeah. So not everybody was there, but yeah. But I started seeing my parents
No, announcements.
Everyone's done it.
So in that particular website, the one that you click on and it takes you to, when you log in,
We have to create.
the original one, before after.
Is there
and
a
after.
box?
So there's 4 lists.
Wow.
And you have to pick
Right.
one.
I got my matches.
It's
So
the,
you have to pick all
you
four.
think got to all that. That is powerful. I like it though.
Oh, that one might be-
Yeah, but it's, but it's, it got my tongue or to,
Nobody's
my
seen it.
taste buds there.
Does he do that often?
Nope. He's always on Facebook. He never posts. He never stops posting on Facebook.
Scary yesterday.
Is it water?
Because, yeah, it's easy. But he doesn't.
So his daughter posted that he's
If it was a
here.
Starbucks.
Either here or nothing. Yeah, he's from
Okay, I think there's, okay, we're gonna get back to our session. I'm gonna read, what Ms. Raquel Canales wrote. We're gonna get back to our session. Laredo, thank you very much for sharing again. I was in band, and our band director would not give us a water break if we were not marching correctly during practice.
Preach on.
Mind you, it was very hot outside.
Preach
We
on.
were lucky we didn't faint on him. That would have been a big lawsuit or parent complaints for sure, okay?
Oh, we had people faint.
There's gonna be instances where you hear things like this, folks. I mean, even John shared that a coach of some sort mistakenly lost control of the ball and the ball hit his face. You know,
Lost control, right?
lost control of the
That's
ball.
what they call it.
Hey, catch this.
Yeah. So the reason I phrase it like that is because that's probably how the teacher would have phrased it had he gotten in trouble. Oh, I lost control of the ball and it slipped. Okay, be careful with that. We always say no. That wouldn't be me. There's no way I would throw a ball at a child.
Well,
You know, emotions run high at times. People make bad choices. A friend of mine was in baseball at a high school I was at, and the coach noticed he wasn't catching correctly. So he went over and says, "Let me see your hand." And he grabbed his hand and he started turning his thumb like, and I go, "You don't need this thumb, do you?" And this was in 1990. And my friend was like upset and laughing at the same time because, you know, he couldn't believe that the coach was doing that.
But
Makes you
hurting
wonder. Not hurting him, but making him uncomfortable. Okay? Making a point that he was catching wrong, so he didn't really need that finger. Okay? Makes you wonder. Coach risking certificate, but the athlete didn't say anything, because why would an athlete say something against the coach?
You know, I hear a lot of that now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's always gone. These guys kill themselves out there, and they care more about what the coaches say than they do their own parents.
Coaches do have a lot of say-so.
I mean, it's like
They're leading
coach,
that
coach,
path.
coach, it's, and they don't care what mom dad says, it's what their coach says. This is not important.
It's a sense of belonging.
And if
A
you
lot of
have
it is
a
that.
concussion in football,
Yeah.
it wasn't a concussion, right? And the kid's like, oh, did you lose consciousness? And the kid's like, no, but the kid did, like he did.
A lot of influence. The coaches, and there's other people, not just coaches, but there's certain people that have a lot of influence over the students. Band directors, I've always heard band directors are tough. I've always heard that. There's a movie, a band director that.
Drumline.
Whiplash.
Whiplash.
That's
Whiplash.
awesome.
I asked a friend of mine, hey, is that true? Is that how band director? I go, no, we're tough because we have to, the discipline is required for the students to take them to another level and all that. And I go, I understand that, but there's no reason to be throwing.
But that was his own kid, though, wasn't it?
In Whiplash?
In Whiplash?
No,
It wasn't his
no,
own kid.
he was just tough. He was tough.
Dude was just crazy.
But you hear horror stories.
That's like school
No.
investigation.
Well, that guy with the cheerleaders, the cheerleader cap that made her do the splits. It was on
oh, yeah,
video.
that he was like forcing her.
He was forcing her
Oh.
forcing them to do the splits, and it was on video.
And it was
Got fired.
but straight, just forcing, you know, so that they would be able to do it.
The coach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was forcing them to do.
And see, now it's on video, how can you argue against that? So think of it this way, you know, all these individuals are risking their certification, they're risking an investigation. Do things get out of hand sometimes? Yeah, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes people just kind of like, no, don't worry about it, or don't say anything.
Like in that case, I think they also involved the assistant principals and the principal because they all knew about it, but nobody said anything.
Yeah, that's scary when other people in a leadership role know about things and nobody does anything.
They're risk losing.
Yes.
Yeah, they distance
You're
themselves,
risking
like,
your
oh, I didn't-
livelihood. That's what you're risking, your livelihood. Okay? In the code of ethics session, I remember, I did it a while back, I had, did I tell you about the teacher I looked up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That suddenly went teaching?
Yeah, suddenly I want to go work in a
Voluntary.
Bass Pro Shop kind of store. And it's like, no, that's questionable. As soon as I looked up the teacher, because once you become certified, folks, your public record, your certification is public record. You can look mine up, and it's right there.
Yeah, look at my eyes.
Yeah, it's public record.
I did.
It is. And you know what? This gentleman, he had his, you know, voluntary revocation. He turned it over. He returned it to the state. A doctor wouldn't return his license. That's his livelihood. Your license, your certification is your livelihood. Without it, you cannot teach. So I remember talking to my friend, the one that was asking me about it. I go, he must have done something because you don't just hand it back. A lot of money and time went into that certification just to return it.
Or like a coach turned cop. Like he left the coaching. He was a head coach and then he left to become.
But you know, you can always keep that certification alive and keep renewing it. You don't want to let go of it. Yeah.
I'm like, you haven't made. You're a Texas high school head coach. That's
Maybe you'd like that.
Yeah. Or
Authority type.
you never know. Maybe there was a calling, or maybe you know, we won't know. So what I wanted to share with you is that these individuals are making bad decisions. You know, so always be mindful of the fact that there's a choice at all times. There's a choice. When you see something coming, a discipline issue, there's a choice of how you're going to handle it. De-escalation is the word. Always keep calm, first of all, because you're the adult, you're the professional. I've had to stop adults in the hallway and say, you know what, I need you to go over there while I talk to the student, because the teacher was getting puffy. You know, so it happens. And the teacher was like, sir, I'm sorry, I was already losing it. I'm glad you were stepped in and got me out of the picture. Like,
I was an investigator for the state also for almost 9 years. For almost 9 years.
okay.
I was an investigator. Believe me, I did enough school investigations to know teachers, paras, facilitators. They get investigated too. There's no line there just because they got.
It's a process. There's a procedure.
Yeah.
There's nothing personal.
scary
If an accusation is done, the procedure is there's an investigation. You know, yes, the person's reputation might be tainted just by the investigation, but ultimately some people are cleared and some people are not. I had a very funny one. One of my ex-bosses, a principal, he's a male, you know, and then we had a female assistant principal and I was the instructional facilitator. And he called me in and says, I need to let you know that there's an investigation, sexual harassment, and you know, so as he's telling me this, I'm like, well, I haven't done anything, have you? Well, it turned out it was against her. And they were asking us questions.
Oh.
And you know, and it was a woman against a woman. So that was very awkward for everybody. But the whole time I was like, well, I know I haven't done anything. And I'm thinking, have you done anything? Once the accusation starts flying, folks, your mind starts flying. You know, it's like, okay, once an investigator shows up, you know, you need to be very careful what you say. Remember when I clarified, did she throw the desk or did she place the desk? I was trying to be very clear on that.
Yeah.
You know?
Because you could just.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? You're
Shove
gonna
it.
sit over here,
Yeah.
sit right there. Versus literally picking it up and, you know, throwing it. So when you might be asked to write a statement, folks, for discipline, for a student that does something, be very careful with your words because you want to be as factual as possible. you know, this, you know, obviously the student was misbehaving, that really isn't clear. Well, what actions was the student doing? Those referrals we talk about, the ones you saw samples of, what exactly was the student doing? Well, the student was disrupting class. How? Well, he was interrupting the whole time and he would not let me continue instruction. Or he was using vulgar language, or he was using vulgar signs or signals or some gestures or anything like that. You want to be specific, okay? Because it will come back. Remember, students are allowed to write their side of the story. And some students choose not to, so I'm like, no, I'm not going to write anything.
So sometimes the cameras in class can save you or not?
Well,
I mean, usually
there's
cameras. So.
Cameras in classrooms?
I mean, on the hallway.
It does.
Hallway.
Teacher, the parents can request one.
Hallways, you know, I've seen them.
Kinder.
Yeah, the parents can
There's
request
certain
it.
rooms, but in general, I'd say no, there's no cameras in the room, in general. But there are instances, and you see them in the news, you know, but they're counted. It's not common to have cameras in the rooms.
Don't we require now, or, no, maybe not. They were asking that all, like, special needs classes have cameras.
I know some places do. I haven't seen in this district.
The PPCD classes.
Yes,
They-
PGCD classes do.
Wow,
And
That's
the
what
parents
it's
can
about.
request them.
that they be placed there.
Yes.
Interesting. That's
I
a
got a friend who's special that
new development.
has a camera in his class.
Yeah, there's some in ours.
And you know, it's for everybody's safety if you think about it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I had a banner, in one of our schools we had a banner, integrity is how you act when nobody's watching.
Yes.
That's true.
It's a very simple statement.
What's PPCD?
That's your special ed for very little kids like pre-KK.
The
little ones.
3-year-olds.
They're like
And
They
it's-
transition from
Yeah.
PCI into the school district. And
they're very little, I mean.
PCI is early intervention.
Yeah. Imagine a special ed student that, you know, has difficulties learning, but is at that age, so little. Can you imagine how difficult that can be, you know? And so those teachers really specialize. I know one PPC child taught me about taking off my tie before I get to the room, because he grabbed me from the tie, and, you know, it was a pretty tie. He grabbed me from the tie and he wouldn't let go. So after that, anytime I needed to go into a room for a disruption, I would take out the tie on my way to the room. That's how you learn. It happens. Laredo, any questions from Laredo? Okay. So yes, you might be called upon, folks, to write a statement. Just be ready to write the facts and stick to the facts. The worst thing you can do is write too much. Because some people are like, well, I think he meant this. And the child was saying, you know, be careful. Write the facts. Because if you write too much, they might use that against you. Well, oh, so you mean you triggered, or, you know, you never know. So you always want to stick to the facts. In those referrals, keep it to the point. What was the action, or what was the behavior that they were doing? What rule were they breaking? Simple as that, okay? Of course, by the time it gets to referral, that means you've already had a talk with them, you've already warned them, things like that, okay? We are going to move on, and I want you to take out your 49 techniques from Teach Like a Champion, because I do want to go over them. I want to make sure we cover these because, it's not this one, it's this one, right here. Let me take it out. This one. And all this is in your Padlet. Okay. You'll find a lot of these techniques. You'll find them on the web, in YouTube, and you'll find a lot of videos as examples. And I really like the videos because some of the teachers, the way they do it, it flows so nicely. It doesn't come natural, folks. Okay, even though they may be simple, a lot of these techniques are simple. It requires consistency. And the reason I share them with you is because I've seen them in practiced in different schools, and the schools have been implementing these school-wide. Okay, everybody had the posters, everybody had the same mentality, that they were using the same techniques with the students. So the students went from reading class to math class to science class, and the teachers had the slant on the wall, the teachers used the same terminology, they used the same lingo, and it really did help improve discipline in that campus.
So were there two sheets of the?
It's a double-sided.
32 through 49.
Yeah, there's two sheets.
One.
Yeah, because this one
I got 1 through 30.
I've got 1 through 30 on.
Oh, you know what? Oh, no, what happened was that, yeah, what happens, I didn't give you all the pages. Give me a second. So what's gonna happen with this, and we're gonna go through it right now. Is this in the, I'm sorry, is this in the handbook? No, this is not, this is from the book, Teach Like a Champion.
Yeah,
Okay.
just me and him have the pages
Yes.
to see them.
So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give you all the pages. You know, it's a 4-pager, and we're gonna review these. Okay, I'm gonna give you some time to discuss them and review them so that we can further clarify the ones that you choose. And some of these you'll naturally want to say, you know what, I want to use that one when I'm in the classroom, or I'd like to use it now because I'm already in the classroom. So now some of these may seem a little bit vague, so we're going to clarify those, but I do want you to choose, okay? So when I give you the 4 sheets, those of you at home, you need to have 1 through 49. And in this case, the people here, they get the 4 pages. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna choose your top 3, the ones that resonate with you, the ones that you really like, because you feel that you would want to implement these in your own classroom. Okay, so while the Laredo people open up their Padlet and dig up the 49 techniques, I'll go ahead and pass out the ones here, okay? I want you to be discussing this because some of you may have different perspectives of how to implement these strategies. And then we're going to share them with the whole group, okay? So, okay. Also, the Wi-Fi is being turned on for you all in case you want to explore these and maybe go to YouTube and see a sample video. Although I included some here, I'm sure you noticed there were some already included in your pre-work. In your pre-work, you were supposed to go through it and view the videos. Right here. Right there. Okay. And, you know, share your thoughts about them. And that's, if you want to refer back to those, you're welcome to. They turned on the Wi-Fi. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on your tablet, on your laptop, so that we can get more details about them and then discuss them. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to go over these. Feel free to discuss them, and I'm going to be walking around answering questions or even asking questions, okay? Let me get your set so you can have them. Okay, so that's the problem. I should have said.
Remember to pass it on the board.
Is it the one that says Academy?
Yes.
Something so simple. I know it. Thanks, man. Stop making fun of me.
Yeah.
The age was 20. At the time, the maximum level was
Spring break. Oh, thanks, guys, because it's so
all
big.
lowercase.
Yeah.
All
lowercase?
Is it
What?
07? Oh, 2017.
27.
Man, that was a really difficult password.
Oh, that's it.
I would never guessed it.
I have very
Small letter?
Everything is
EST.
lowercase.
Small letter?
Yeah, everything lowercase.
Oh, you have it?
Give me back. You want the 32?
How are you going to repeat it? Here you go. You need 1 through 49? Yes,
Number 31,
Okay.
Did you get it?
Yeah, mine's just disconnecting.
and then you jump to 30.
Oh, it's connecting.
Is that a Z or 2?
The 2.
There we go.
Okay.
0.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm gonna skip it when I copy everything. But
Play Halo on
I
that?
put it. I took it from the web and put it on the web.
Good
So
one,
you got
man.
it
Good
home?
one. You guys are so hilarious.
That's the code.
Haters, man.
Here you
Hey,
go.
man.
Just want to make sure you have a complete set.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have one complete?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go. Okay, that's the. Well, that's a super secret password. Oh, okay, great.
You're gonna do the Men in Black thing to us when we leave.
Okay. Well, that's a password. That way you can. Oh. That way, if you need to YouTube some of these, just because you want further details, you can do it now. I'm gonna set the timer for 10 minutes. Let's see.
yours is
2017.
lower caps?
You know which one I
Sí.
saw that at night?
It's all lowercase, yes.
Cold calls?
Yeah. There it is.
See, the one that I really enjoyed was getting everyone's attention.
Which one?
Oh, the one where she used like when she was giving.
The one that you were
Like-
throwing the
Yeah, she was using nonverbal signs.
Yes.
So
She
for
was
instance.
good. She's the one that was going like.
Yeah, exactly. So like for instance, if one of the students was acting out, she did a quick remark, and she didn't even stop the lesson at all.
That's where you can tell. I've seen teachers that I walk in to do a walkthrough, and they'll be like doing the lesson, and it was language and racial, so they were doing the lesson. They just looked at me and they kept on going. And one of them, I remember the first time she did that. She said, "I'm sorry, I was." I was fine with it. I don't need to be introduced. I don't even. You keep on teaching. You do your job. Beautiful stuff. The teacher just kept on rolling. And there's others that are like, "Hey, how you doing?" You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But some administrators like to be recognized and, oh, kids, this is the, you know, it all depends on the administration. But the flow of the instruction, if it's not interrupted, that's what matters.
I never liked from my principal to do. She was always more of a totalitarian dictator type
That's
thing.
another.
And I mean, and the DL, you know, that's why she loses a lot of employees. That's why I don't work there.
When you learn to work with people, you gotta work with people. It's not fishy. What? Some of those I really like, so I kind of, it's up, you know. There's a few that I like. What's my favorite? And I'll tell you my favorite.
First one?
Which one? Some kids, you know, they're good kids, they say, no trouble, no trouble. And they don't really go. So I like that. And actually, they actually.
The one we had implemented throughout the entire school was the seat signals. So for instance, restroom was this, water was this, pencil, question,
And everybody knew.
and tissue. And everyone knew that we used that in all of the classrooms and when the kids were eating lunch in the cafeteria.
Consistency. And the kids get used to it, whatever you train them.
So that they knew, so some of them were there from like kinder, and they were 10th, 11th graders, and they consistently used it.
That's what helps that school, because they have consistency. And even though the administration changes, the system is in place.
I think for the most part, the administration, you know, like my principal, she was there for 4 or 5 years, and she had just signed a contract extension of another 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, they do pretty well unless they want to move on. That's the only change.
That is good, nice, good consistency for the administration too. It helps.
This one seems a little problematic. So I'm supposed to pick 3?
The score would be like super high.
It's 20.
Laredo, make sure you choose 2 or 3 of them that resonate with you, and that way you can share which ones are your favorite based on numbers. When I copied it over, I think I skipped number 31, but you know, figure that out later.
Because they turn, I heard they turn.
The radio show?
They were all free, except for, obviously now I know that I need to do the other things from RJ7. What I try to do is I try to get on during the week.
I can make it work. The whole system is one card.
How many grades do you have to turn in for first year? Oh no, man, I'll let you know right now. Yeah, it's not
Because this was a short right here.
When I get everything, I got everything. I took, because you were having problems with the certain mine doesn't show up green. Okay, so you know how when you went into it?
Yeah,
yours shows
it
up
didn't show
green.
like that.
For you.
Do the does your school do like the book studies to go over it itself? Or do they just introduce them and explain them and make sure they
What they don't really, what they do is that they give us, they give it all in the flash drive. So they just, they upload everything onto the computer. And then it's up to you to do it too. So it's, the expectation is you need to do it. And then well, what they did is, they gave out the book. And the book is for first year teachers. So during when they're going, it's only done on what they call a new teacher conference. So when the teachers are going over how to make lesson plans, is what they start going over. It's like you need to have this done. Read these. We're gonna discuss them the following day. But they do it. It's a 2-week type thing. And the second week is when they start covering the rest of these are. There's more less we have 50. So there are like 50 things that like rules to live by. One of them is like, you know, when you go to a field trip, make sure you're polite and show appreciation. Keep your hands to yourself when seated on the bus. When the teacher's absent, be extra courteous to the substitute. Those type of things.
But it's interesting that the school is very clear about reiterating and making sure they keep seeing the kid. In other words, they don't take it for granted that the children remember.
Yeah.
I like that.
One of the things I was curious about, when going over the rules and procedures, normally how long should it take?
Definitely the first day. First day, maybe 10-15 minutes to go over them and explain them. And then touch with them, the next few days, but not as much.
Well, because I don't have it with me, but I have my presentation that I had for going over my specific rules and procedures and going over all of the ones for the school and then going over the ones for the individual classes took 2 weeks.
But not how many minutes per day?
Well, it was per class, so 45 minutes, 45 minutes, 45 minutes, 2 weeks, for 2 weeks.
That's a lot.
So like, for instance, we showed the students this is what's expected of you. It was more along the lines of say, model, have them do it, repeat, and
Okay. So for 2 weeks there was no instruction? It was only
there's no instruction for the first 2 weeks in school.
Legally blind?
really?
Yes. I mean, it still had its drawbacks. A lot of the flaws. There would be times when we have to go back and redo it, reteach it. But that for the first 2 weeks of school, it was just go over the procedures. This is how you're gonna walk in line. This is who's gonna go first in the cafeteria, who's gonna go next, etc., etc., etc. During class, this is the way I want things to be done.
Which class was this?
Well, they're not all the classes. So no, in other words,
Not all day long.
well,
So the kid has 5 periods.
the students. Okay, so the students had 4 classes. This is elementary. So the first class is an hour and 30 minutes. All of the classes are an hour and 30 minutes. The only difference is that for electives, instead of being an hour and 30 minutes, or 45 minutes at a time. So for the first week, for sure, there is absolutely no instruction. And then for the next, as the next week comes by, I think it's up until Wednesday is when they start having some instruction. About a week and a half. It's like 8 days of no instruction.
That's interesting. That's a lot of time. But you have to wait, let's say November, December, and you keep on investing that amount of time?
No. For the rest of the school year, it's done. Like for instance, if you're having extreme problems with the classroom, keep them during lunch and make them do it over and over and over again, or during the after school
Sounds
class.
like programming.
It was more of a drill type setting, so it was
Interesting.
That's why I was curious about that.
I'm gonna ask you to share in a minute about that, because I want everybody to hear that. Okay, we're gonna bring it back. Laredo, I hope you chose some interesting ones. As I was walking around, I got to hear about some techniques, and different people chose different techniques. The reason you're doing this really is because I keep tying discipline and classroom management to instruction, guys. Remember what I've told you before. Classroom management is very dependent on how you're planning and how you're teaching. Okay, if you do that well, if you make sure that you're planning and be ready and have your resources ready, your manipulatives, your forms, your documents, whichever one, whatever you need, if you have that ready, your classroom management will be better. So along those lines, these teach like champion techniques about setting high expectations, academic expectations, about planning that ensures academic achievement, structuring and delivering your lessons, engaging students in your lesson, creating a strong classroom culture, and building and maintaining high behavioral expectations. Of course, the last one, building character and trust. Those are broken down like that, but notice that it's not all about disciplining them, but more like working with them in a way that you prevent discipline issues. That's the whole point. You're being proactive. You're setting the stage for positive discipline, for children to learn, to know how to behave, because you're telling them exactly what's expected. Okay, that's the whole point of all this. If you can be proactive, that means that you are going to do, and you're going to establish an environment of good behavior, not just an environment of reactive to negative behavior. So along those lines, I wanted you to share your the way you've experienced setting the stage for the year, which I found very interesting.
Yeah.
Because when you asked me how much time to invest in going over the rules, my instinct was, well, the first day you go 15 minutes, and then the following days, a little bit more just to remind them. And that would have been my natural, because my thing is I gotta get to teach. Day one. My perspective is day one. You've got to start teaching. There's no time to lose. If you think about it, before you know it, it's Christmas. 2 weeks off. January comes around. March, start testing. So that's my perspective, instructional. But he shared an interesting perspective of how he's experienced it. And I wanted you to share it loud and clear so Laredo can hear you.
Okay, so I work for Idea Public Schools. The way that we do our systems and procedures is a little bit different. Obviously. So the way that we do it is at the very beginning of the school year, you don't actually have a lesson plan. The lesson plan is given to you by the campus administrators. So you take, for instance, like the first couple of days, like the first 8 or 9 days, and you don't do absolutely any instruction at all. what you're doing is you're teaching the students this is the way you're going to do this. In other words, you're just going over all of the procedures. So what you do is you teach it, you model it, and then you have them do it ad nauseum. So in other words, like say for instance, when you walk into the classroom, this is what you're going to do. You're going to shake my hand. You're going to walk quietly to your desk. You're going to sit down, put your backpack underneath your chair, and then you're going to start working on whatever's on the board. Then you model that for them and show them specifically, step by step, what it is they need to do, and then they have to do it. And then you're doing that along with everything else, like how you're gonna leave the classroom, where do the papers go, where the homework is on the board, where the objectives are, how they're supposed to write it down, etc. And they spend, I believe it's the first 2 weeks completely doing that without doing any coursework. So it's a little different. It's time consuming, but it does save a lot of time in the end. Where the kid, you're not gonna have a kid say, "Oh, I didn't do my homework." It's up there. It's been up there the entire school year. I told you the first day of school. I told you the second day, etc. It hasn't changed. They should know by now. That type of setting.
I find that interesting because, like I told you, when you first asked me how much time, I said, well, 15, 20 minutes just to go over the rules, make sure you cover them, explain them, and get rolling with instruction. But that's an interesting approach. My first question would be, do you feel that it's impactful enough that the rest of the year runs smoothly?
I believe it does, mostly because, like I said, you don't have to go back and say, oh, the homework's been there, I changed it, I put it somewhere else. No, it's consistent. And not only that, but it's not only the first through fifth graders, it's the first through 12th graders that are doing the same thing. There's absolutely no instruction for the first 2 weeks.
And this is school-wide.
Yes.
Everybody uses the same rules, the same procedures, the same steps, so there's no misunderstandings.
The only disparity is, like, for instance, in the elementary, we go over more procedural type things, like when you leave my classroom, you're going to walk out in a line, whereas, for instance, in the high school, I'm going to dismiss you.
Yes.
And then when I dismiss you, you have a set amount of time to go to your next class.
Yes.
There's no formal.
It's grade level appropriate.
Exactly.
That's interesting. I mean, and how it's handled. Obviously, that campus handles it, and it works for them. Okay.
I believe it works. That's the way it's done
in
all
the system,
the idea.
the whole system.
Yeah, all the ideas.
I have.
Sure.
I could share. I went to do an investigation at one of the schools where you work at, and after I did what I needed to do, I was taken by one of the administrators to walk the campus because the administrator happened to be a relative of mine, and she wanted to show me how it worked and everything. I walked into this class, and this young man came up to me and said, "Hello, ma'am, how are you doing?" And I thought it was somebody that worked there. And I was really impressed because the class there was no noise, it was very calm. And come to find out, he was one of the top students, but the way he presented himself was real impressive. And I think it had to do with
the structure.
And,
it makes a difference.
I've been in a lot of BISD schools too. And,
you can sense it. You can sense it when you're in a challenging school and you go into another school. It happened to me. I was in a challenging middle school and I went into a more high-performing high school. And day one, I was in the hallway and I just saw a young man. Good morning. And he stopped. Good morning, sir. Okay. A little bit shaken there. Didn't know how to react. Like, okay, what do you mean by that? But it was good to see that, and it's very memorable because you may not be used to it.
Yes, I was not used to it, and I've gone into so many schools and I never.
A variety of schools, yeah.
So many different types.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been subbing at Lucio for the past couple of days.
You guys are killing me. Out of middle school, yes.
It was cool. It was cool. It's my first. It's my first time in a classroom like that.
Yes.
So
interesting.
It was a good school.
In that nameless school, how did it go?
There was some issues with some kids, but overall, it was a really good experience.
You can feel the difference, you know, in different schools. I told you about the school. It was a middle school that I jokingly told the principal, you need stoplights, you know, to control the traffic in the hallways during class time. There were so many students in the hallway during class time. That was the first thing I noticed. That does not work. You know, why are there so many students in the hallway? Well, they're using the restroom. They're going to, yeah, but like you would see like 15 of them in the hallway at the same time. That's not right. That should be controlled more. You know? But yeah, you do see variety, and middle school's a different world. But even within middle school, you have variety.
Yeah, all different classes. They were different.
Yeah,
I mean, they were all.
A good friend of mine, he was a athletic coordinator at one of the schools I was at, and when I first met him, he welcomed me to that school, and he sensed I was not used to that population, and I wasn't. But you work with it, and he told me, "Welcome to to middle school." I go, "Oh, well, thank you," and he says, "You know, middle schools in districts all over the place. They're like, I mean, think of them as military bases. You know, that one over there in that side of the city, that's Hawaii. That's the military base in Hawaii. This is Afghanistan." And I was like, really? But that's the way he described it. And to be honest, I enjoyed I've worked in all three levels, and I've enjoyed all of them for different reasons.
Yeah.
I got to work in a high-performing campus that everything was fine, and the parents were involved, and this and that, and challenges were different. Going into a challenging school for different reasons, where the students didn't really know if they were going to eat that night, or the parent was going to show up, upset, or it was a different environment. But even then, you had high-performing students there. You had very bright students. It just so happens that there were certain bad apples, but every school has the good, the bad, and the other. Every single school.
Yeah.
I've been in 8 locations. I've loved them all for different reasons, and I've enjoyed them all. So I remind people, move around a little bit. Don't feel that, my own brother was in a school for 20 years, and I told him, you need to move or something, experience something else. He's got a graduate degree, an administrator certification, but he had never moved in 20 years. Finally he did. He went into middle school, is enjoying it a lot. He misses elementary because of the little ones, but now he's enjoying middle school because he gets to talk with them and discuss and all that. So he's enjoying that now. He might end up in high school as far as, So you do need to move around. You need to experience different things, folks. Okay? One of the comments that a friend of mine made from a private school was like, they're the same thing, kids are kids. Kids are kids. They just have different challenges. These kids don't worry about eating. They worry about, the internet going down. They worry about, just not spending enough time with parents because parents are working all the time. Those are the challenges they face. They don't see the parents, they're making good money, but they're never home. So that could be an issue with those kids. So think of it that way. There's always going to be issues. It all depends which ones you're working with.
I have an older brother who's been a teacher and a coach for I don't know how many years. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a lot of crazy stories that he's told me of his athletes. Per se, I remember this one I'll never forget. It was one when he was at, I don't know if I'm going to say the school, but my brother's the type of person, he gets there, he's the first and the last one to leave. And one morning he was in there and he heard shuffling, right?
Yeah,
because he was
moving around.
Yeah, and he was that was a raccoon. So he went into the school, right? And he went to the back of the area where the showers were at. Well, he caught one of his students climbing in.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Hey, dude, it's 5 in the morning. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, coach, I'm sorry. I was gonna take a shower."
Mm-hmm. I've heard of that one.
What do you mean take a shower?
I've heard of that one, that they actually break into the school to take a shower.
Yeah. So my brother felt bad, because he's like, man, this kid's awesome, and kid told him well, I don't have no light, no water in my house, so it's just me and my brother. And so my brother went, he bought him clothes for him and his brother, and bought him toothpaste. paste shampoo and all that stuff. I mean, bro told me, goes, don't climb through the through the window no more because you're gonna break it. So just come here when I'm here, and you can wash your clothes and you know.
And those are tough calls because, you know, you're an employee of the district and you want to be careful, but at the same time, you know, there's that human factor that you want to help out. Especially when, like you said, it's one of those good kids that is going through the challenges that child is facing are a lot different than the other one that just broke up with his girlfriend, or, you know, those are different challenges. This one is actually, you know, hygiene, electricity, food.
And it was hard for my brother because they ended up finding that kid murdered somewhere. So my brother took that really hard.
Crazy situations that people are aware of.
I mean, as a teacher, that's going to happen one day. I mean, I hate to be negative, but something.
Think about it this way: you spend more time with the students than the parents. A lot of times, you know, parents see the kids from 5 to 10, maybe, or if they're lucky, if that. The teachers actually spend more time with the children. So who's taking care of who here?
Local branches.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, sir. Laredo has a comment on technique number 20, which happens to be the exit ticket. An exit ticket is a quick formative assessment of the lesson your students just finished. Technique 8, post-it. Must be sure your students know your objective for the day by posting it on the board. Technique 12, the hook. Introducing the lesson with a hook, an activity or item that grabs the attention of your students will help enhance your lesson. So thank you, Ms. Raquel, for identifying the techniques that resonate with you. I know that everybody has their favorites. I have my favorites, and I'll be sharing those with you. She mentioned the hook. She mentioned the post-it, okay? And I forgot the first one. But the hook is very important, folks. I mean, you start a lesson, you want to get people's attention. That's the whole point. You want to get their attention, whether with a fun fact, whether with an incident, a memorable experience, anything that catches their attention. Because the whole point is, you know, once you have their attention, you got about maybe 10, 15 minutes to really teach them something. Attention spans are not what they used to be. Attention spans really max at about 26 minutes for adults. For kids, it's usually their age. That's why you see kindergarten teachers and first grade teachers doing activities and then they switch to something else with hands-on, okay? So I told you that attention spans max at about 26 minutes for adults. Okay. How long is this session?
3 hours.
3 hours, yeah. So you got to talk, you got to listen, you got to write. You got to talk, you got to, you know, you have to be talking at some point. Otherwise, things get very interesting, okay? So, is there somebody else from Laredo? Thank you, Laredo. And we'll get to you all in a minute. Ms. Garcia, technique number 1, the no opting out. Students need to try, okay, technique 12, the hook, and technique 28, entry routine. Students should always be aware, always try to answer questions. If incorrect, it can be a discussion why they are incorrect and make them think about the correct answer. Cognitive thinking, very important. Also, keep class interesting and clear on objectives, and students should have a routine. They learn this and gives them a sense of belonging and saves time. I'm glad you touched on the no opting out. That's one of my favorites actually, because what happens is you have students that are calm, they're not causing trouble, they're okay, they're not giving you any trouble, so you tend to forget about them or you tend to let them off the hook. You ask a question and they either stare at you and don't answer, and the instinct is, so does anybody else have the answer? That's the instinct, because we don't want to humiliate anybody. So let's say I ask you something and you're just looking at me and blinking. My instinct is, you know what, can somebody help her out? Okay? So what you do with the no opting out, and the reason I like it a lot is because I'm not going to let you off the hook. I'm going to ask somebody to help you out or explain it, but then I'm going to come back to you and say, so what was that he said? Or what was, can you repeat, or can you elaborate on what he covered? See, you never got off the hook. I still came back to you. And that's the no opting out. We want to make sure that no kid feels like, well, if I'm nice and quiet, or if I just stare at the teacher, that the teacher will forget to come back to me. That's why I like that technique.
I could have used that one today because
You used it?
I could have used it.
Oh, okay, there you go.
I had a group quiz today.
Okay.
And I was calling out from attendance, calling out on different students' questions.
Yeah.
And some of them were doing that. They would just look at
Yeah,
me.
because it's safe. When you ask me a question and I just stare at you, you're gonna wanna help me somehow. So what do? You call on somebody else, and hopefully that person gets it. You need to come back to the person and say, okay, so what did he say? You know, can you go ahead and explain it? Because they've had the opportunity to listen to the other person answer. Okay, so it's good that you recognize that. Keep it in mind for next time. You know, good point. Olivares, Jesus Olivares, technique number 6, begin with the end in mind by showing the students how they will be using the new concept and how it connects with the past and future lessons. The students will develop an interest in learning the new topic. I keep tying discipline to something else, or classroom management to something else. What do I keep tying it to? Because classroom management is just, you know, working with the students. But I keep tying it, guys, to the big picture, instruction. That's what I keep tying it to. A lot of people that have problems with classroom management is because they have problems with the planning and the resources and the instruction. They don't have a good grasp on that. They think they can show up the day of, shoot from the hip, and try to go over some star passages. It doesn't work like that. If you don't act out, or if you don't visualize the lesson, you're gonna have problems. I was talking to a charter school teacher, and she goes, whenever I make my lesson plans, I actually have to write down the questions I'm gonna ask the students, but I also have to ask the questions that I think the students are gonna ask me, and whatever misconceptions they might have. So that teacher is thoroughly thinking about what's gonna happen in that classroom. Okay? Think of it that way. You've got 45 minutes and sometimes an hour and a half. An hour and a half is a long time when you're not prepared. It's an eternity when you're not ready. When you don't have your manipulatives, your resources, your forms, your copies, your pencils, whatever you might need for that lesson, if you don't have it ready, if you don't know what you're gonna do, introduction, explain what's going on, model what's going on, the lesson or the samples or the math problems or whatever, and then let them practice independently. If you don't plan out that, if you don't see it, play it out in your mind, you're probably gonna have an interesting time if things go wrong. Think of it that way, okay? This is 3 hours long, and I have to think about, okay, first I'm gonna mention this, then I'm gonna go into this activity, then I'm gonna let them discuss, then I'm gonna talk, you know, I'm gonna bring, I have to not forget about Laredo, because, you know, we tend to forget about Laredo sometimes. So I have to keep looking at the little blue light. Think of it for yourselves. How are you going to be planning? Because the better you are at your planning and being ready for instruction, the better your classroom management will be, because the students will be busy. They won't have time. Downtime is one of the worst things you can have in your classroom. Downtime. Okay? From the get-go, you mentioned that they were modeled how to come in and sit down and look at the board to see what the prompt was. There's no downtime there. Think of it that way, guys. What are you going to be using? Thank you. Once again, the hook, okay, an immediate way to grab the student's attention for a new topic being covered, which will reinforce learning. And some hooks, guys, can be a story, an anecdote, a video, a song. I've actually had teachers use an audio and say, okay, guys, listen to this audio. The lesson's going to start like this. And they play the audio. The students are listening. It was a U.S. history class. They were listening to the audio, they were imagining what was going on, and that's what got the students engaged, and then the teacher went into the lesson, the actual lesson for that day. I got to witness a English 1 teacher do a little PowerPoint on the Great Depression as a precursor to the novel of Mice and Men. She wanted to show the students what the U.S. was going through, what people were going through with the Great Depression, to help explain why the characters in the novel of Mice and Men, why they did what they did. Okay? An English teacher talking about history. Yeah, she made a connection. Your students are gonna have to make connections, and that's a big word right now. Are your students going to connect with whatever you're teaching? Are you going to help them make connections? If you're a math teacher and you're talking about temperature, you know, do you explain that that is also a scientific, you know, concept? You know, I walked into a math class where the teacher had the percentage, the fraction, and the decimal. And they all were the same thing. Well, I don't even know about you, but when I was a kid, nobody actually told me those were all related. They taught them to me. They taught me percentages and decimals and fractions, but they didn't tell me that they were all connected. You see what I'm saying? So how good are you going to be about making connections like that, that the students understand? You know, how many of you learn to measure by drawing a ruler or using a ruler, and how many of you learn to measure by actually helping your dad measure wood and cutting? I learned to measure not from a teacher. My teacher could never teach me how to measure. I learned it from my dad, and how he would, you know, he would tell me, this is a half, this is a fourth, this is a eighth, this is a 16th. That's how I learned. And then he would do the little marks on the wood, and I never understood why he would make a V. That's the way he did it to this day, and he still does it. Okay, but I learned it from hands-on experience. So that type of instruction is what requires planning to make it more real for the students. Okay, we're gonna go with you all. Let's see who wants to start with their techniques. We've touched on a few, but we can elaborate on them. Anyone that stands out? Yes, sir.
I like the hook, but I'm not gonna say it because everybody already said it.
We've discussed the hook.
I was gonna start with no apologies. Okay. At the end, I shouldn't say at the end of the day. In the beginning of the day.
Yes.
You gotta realize you're the professional in the classroom. Okay. So you have no business apologizing for what you're gonna teach. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know. Oh, sorry guys.
No, I'm glad you feel strongly about it, because I do too. No apologies. Have you ever heard this? Guys, I know this is boring, but we have to do it for the test. You're already apologizing, and you haven't even started teaching, and you're apologizing. What do you think the kids are hearing?
Yeah. What is that going to put them in?
If it's not important to you, why should it be important to me then? So that no apologies technique, that is something I've used before, and I really understand, because I've witnessed teachers bring that up. I could easily tell you, guys, I know it's Friday, you know, it is Friday. We've all worked. Well, I think we've all had a long day of work. I know I have. I can't. But think about it this way: this is an investment in your future. This is an investment. You know, I got my second win, by the way. So in my mind, these 3 hours are valuable, because you will be learning something that you will be utilizing for your career. There should be apologies that it's Friday. I know I did one time. We did a Friday night, Saturday morning. That was interesting.
We did that last week.
You just had it? Oh, wow.
It was
Okay, I wasn't there, so I'm not going to bring that up.
It was actually Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday, Friday.
Oh my goodness.
Double session on Saturday.
Okay, John doesn't even want to look up. But you know what? I call it an investment.
He's like, I was here too.
I did.
Oh, it's true.
Because I did 4 years of investing. I invested 4 years in undergraduate, 3 years in graduate. And you know, I do what I do. I've enjoyed it, and I'm still not done. I enjoy it a lot. So you all are, it's an investment. And just like you said, no apologies. In the classroom, you're teaching mathematics because it has to be taught, of course, but also because it's all over, it's all around us. Mathematics is everywhere. You know, mathematics will protect you from getting swindled in a mortgage, or being ripped off in a transaction. I mean, things like that.
Car sales.
Car sales. Oh, car sales, you know, the way they put those numbers, and then they throw in things that you're like, do I really need this? You know, you need to prepare them.
I was a banker for 10 years, so yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of, you know, knowledge is power, folks. So what you're teaching these kids, so never apologize for the knowledge you're giving them. You are giving them a gift.
Well, it's like that video of that teacher. He said,
Ah, the
I'm
gift.
giving you a present.
Yes.
That's not wrapped, and that's the gift of knowledge.
Yeah.
And he tells you guys,
Yeah.
it's free. I'm not.
You
charging.
all are learning from all these sessions. You're learning different perspectives because you're listening to different individuals that have had different experiences. I enjoy doing these sessions because I've picked up and I learned from you all also, and because I like welcoming new educators into the career. I really enjoy that. I've been blessed to welcome I hired 3 new teachers fresh out of college when I was an interim principal. And I can tell you it's the best feeling to bring somebody into this career and give them that first opportunity. Because somebody gave me my first opportunity, and to this day, I'm grateful to that gentleman. I did it to 3 people, and I see them now. They're successful teachers. They're still working with it. They enjoy it. It's a great satisfaction to bring people into this career. Okay? So when I do these sessions, that's what I enjoy. I'll be running into some of you at the school setting and training. I ran into one of them actually at a high school. And I'm going to go back and train them on a software, and she's one of them. Very shy lady. She's working at a high school. So I'm very glad to see that. So it's an investment, folks. So no apologies. I like that. Yes, sir.
Mine was right is right.
Just like the mom. What's right
See,
is right.
in my perspective, let's say for instance, you have an architect or an engineer that they're building a new bridge, and they decide they're not going to build it completely. So let's say it's 2 engineers and they're working to find a solution to it, but one of them does it one way and he doesn't quite finish it, and then the other engineer or the other architect does it a different way, but they don't quite finish it, and they end up having 2 different bridges, one lower, one higher, or one slightly off.
It has happened, by the way.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I think if they're doing something simple, like say for instance they're doing a math problem. Obviously, the best thing would be to have them work it out completely, as opposed to I'm just going to give you the answer. Well, how did you get that answer? Or if they're trying to if they're writing a paper and they're quoting a lot of different sites, but they don't really tell you where they got it from. Or how do I know that you didn't just that you wrote this or that someone else wrote it? Show me where you got everything from.
And mathematics is a big thing because children will tell you, sir, I don't have to write the steps. I already worked it out in my head. And my response when I was teaching 5th grade math was, that's wonderful, that's good, but I need to see the steps you followed so that I can see what you were thinking and how you were thinking about the process. Because it is a process. I wouldn't discourage them, but I would remind them why I needed to see the process. So it had to be a complete step by step, and that's the way mathematics is. You have to show your steps.
As someone that would just write down the answer as a kid, I saw later when I was taking calculus 1, 2, 3, and advanced calculus, doing those steps helps you in those higher order math problems.
Yeah, so some of those
specifically
like 2 pages or 3 pages, and then get the answer.
Yes. So that helps you, that process helps you.
And that's something that I wish I would have phrased it like that, but obviously I was teaching elementary, but you talked about higher level mathematics where showing the process leads to the answer or facilitates it. I could have also explained it like that, but that's good. It explains to the students why it's in the best interest. I used to do proofs in geometry.
Yeah.
I was a proof machine. I could prove a lot of things because I would remember a lot of the rules, and I enjoyed it. Kind of weird, but I would enjoy it. And it was one of those things that came natural to me.
I hated doing proofs.
And the teacher made us memorize it. We had to memorize step by step by step, and the angles and the sides and all that stuff. And I thought it was pretty cool. Back in the day. Thank you for sharing, sir. Do you have one?
Yeah, mine was stretch it.
Stretch it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the fact that since I do teach medical terminology, I expect for them to understand the word and the process of the word.
Okay.
Which is the prefix and the suffix and the root.
Okay. Break up the word
and bring it together.
Bring it together. I'm glad you bring that up. I'm about to have a discussion with a teacher that the medical terms they have to write them how many times? 10 times each, or I don't know, 20 times each, or 10 times each, and there's 60 words. So it's like 10 times each, and I'm thinking, I have an issue with that Because writing it 10 times, and if you misspelled it the first time, you're gonna misspell it the other 9 times. So this thing about the write it 10 times, I'm not really convinced. I'm dealing with a situation like that. So I'm glad you point out the fact, break up the word, understand the parts of the word, because really in the medical field, all these words are combined.
Yeah, because if you can relate that itis means inflammation,
Yes.
or that algia means pain, and you put that in front of a word,
Yes.
or like, let's say, arthritis, well then you know that it's inflammation of the joint.
Yes.
So if you can understand the root word and you can understand the suffix and the prefix, then
Yes.
the word should come together.
And that's really a reading skill. You know, you're using reading skills to teach your medical terminology versus write it 10 times each. And yeah, I need to deal with that. Another school, of course. Yeah. But it's happening. It's happening. And what I told this person was, there are better strategies in having you learn the words than writing them 10 times each.
Well, basically what I do with my students is I'll have them buy index cards, and I'll have them write the prefix or the suffix, and then in the back have the definition, which is information,
a lot more memorable,
pain, and they can just use that to study at home, or they can, when they have group sessions, they test each other, and it works out.
Very, very memorable. I'm sure the kids, you know, carry their cards, and it really helps. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. Let's try this table. Which ones did you like? And if you choose one that's similar, if you want to elaborate on it, you know.
Normalize error.
Normalize error, okay.
Well, just to help the students understand that they can not be afraid to ask questions or work a problem, and if they get it wrong, that it's okay, that it's an opportunity to learn.
So learning from your mistakes.
Learning from mistakes.
You know, there's a software that we use that allows you to show the whole test that the students took, and it shows you how many students got the right answer, the wrong answer, the wrong answer, the wrong answer, and then that's where discussion takes place. Students learn from what they did wrong. If you present it in the light of, let's learn, guys, what exactly, what caused you to get it wrong? Was it a specific word? Was it the way it was phrased? What caused you to get it wrong, so that they learn from those mistakes, and next time they can avoid them? So that happens a lot, and some people consider it a waste of time to go over a test. It's not if you use it instructionally. If you learn from those mistakes and say, and that's when kids are like, oh man, I can't believe I missed that one. I totally missed that word. One of my favorite examples is 3rd grade, about 3 years ago, STAR test, 3rd grade. What is the antonym of work? The options were fun, hobby, task, something like that. 25% of the district got it right. The other 75% of the kids chose the wrong answer, the other wrong answer, and the other wrong answer. They didn't know what antonym meant.
What is the antonym of work? Is it hobby?
Well, in that case, it would have been hobby. You know, but the funny thing is, they're so used to hearing the opposite of, that they didn't know what antonym. 25% of the kids knew what an antonym was. The other 75% did not. And so it's not that they were ignorant or they just didn't know what that word meant, and it threw them off. So that's where you have to, as a teacher, you have to be able to show them different ways of approaching problems. And that's still very memorable to me, that specific example. So learning from their mistakes, it really helps. What about you, ma'am? You wanted to share one?
Yeah, I like the technique 24, the pepper. I saw it in a video that was there, and it looks like a lot of fun. Something that I would enjoy myself, and make sure that the students did too.
Yes.
And it's a good learning technique because
it's fast.
Yeah, it's active, and they get off their tables, and
yes,
you know, you get
the standing really helps.
Right.
How many of you did math around the world, multiplication around the world when you were kids? You would stand up. You would stand up next to her. Whoever wins the multiplication problem moves on to the next person. So whoever made it around the classroom, you were the winner for the classroom. You know, multiplication around the. That's what we called it. Yeah, they would make us multiply. You know, they would shoot the multiplication facts at us, and we had to solve it. If whoever won would stand and go to the next kid. And it was fast-paced.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, but I think they call it King
I'm
of the
dating
Mountain,
myself.
King of the Mountain.
King of the Mountain, you know, multiplication around the world. I mean, whatever, you know, whatever you called it, it was fun. We loved it, and we didn't realize we were learning. You know, we were practicing our multiplication tables. That's what we were
We
doing.
have races to the chalkboard.
Yeah. There you go. There you
They'll give
go.
a problem, give a multiplication problem and run.
Oh wow. Yeah. And you know that's another way of doing it.
Chalkboard, yes. Chalkboard.
Having been
Chalkboard, actual chalk.
Oh, chalk, yeah, back in the day. Now it's off whiteboard. My only concern with that as an ex-safety coordinator,
You could fall and hit
tripping
themselves.
and the kids and,
We bounced right there.
oh, the good old days.
Walk it
We
off.
bounced.
Walk it off.
Do you have one, sir? So we
Yes,
can
I got the name the steps.
name the
I
steps.
found it real strong that it relates to me because, again, when I was a police officer,
Yeah,
when I would take somebody into custody, I would explain
you have
the
yeah.
process,
Oh yeah.
what was gonna happen. One, for that particular student, if it's the first time, not to be afraid,
Mhm.
you know, just to bear the consequences. And I would explain step by step what's gonna happen. So that's what I would do.
Yeah.
So I've done it.
That's an example, you know, and instructionally, you tell them what they're going to learn, why they're going to learn it, and, you know, that they're gonna practice, that they're going to do it on their own, that they're going to get, you know, questions to check for understanding.
And since
So-
I'm already used to that,
Yeah.
when I become a teacher, I'll be a first-time teacher.
Mhm.
I can use that also.
You apply it.
Because I already have it and I already understand it.
You apply the knowledge
So,
that
yeah.
you have, you know, and that's what we want the children to do. Apply the knowledge that we give them, apply it in new situations. That's when you know they've learned it. Okay? Thank you, sir. Sir?
Warm and strict.
Warm and strict. Okay.
I like that one. So you're here, friendly, you're cordial, but when it comes time to discipline or to tell them what the instructions are or changing tasks, you get down on it. You get right down to it.
Yeah.
Or like for example, yesterday, this girl had her foot up on the table.
Okay. Let's use it.
So I just said, get off the table. But then like 10 minutes later, she was foot on the table.
Yeah.
And I looked, and they looked like new shoes. So I think she was showing them off.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, hey, those are nice kicks. Are those the new Jordans? He's like, yeah. He's like, great, they look really nice. Get them on the floor.
And then that was a subtle way of, not making a big deal of it, but he still got the job done.
Yeah.
Okay, it happens, I know what you mean because I used to have a colleague, sadly enough, it was a lady, and she would take off her shoe at work and then kind of cross her leg. Yeah, I didn't want to see her foot. It was a big foot.
Oh my goodness.
To this day, it's just
so weird.
No. You don't take off your shoes at work. I'm very conservative, but it wasn't even a pretty foot. It was a big foot.
I think
That's normal. You shouldn't be.
I remember, I think she was one of the high, she was this individual, because I used to work at the BISD also, in the police department, and public information. She would run and she would run off with no kids. This particular person.
I don't know, that natural feel, but no, you're working, the shoes stay on.
Just do it at home.
She was our dispatcher, sir.
Oh, that's.
She was a doctor too,
Oh,
so.
okay, that happens,
Very, very free.
And these are the professionals with the
Free
shoe
spirit.
situations, okay?
Very free.
Okay, Mr. H, what's your example?
Well, I mean, I picked 4 because I really like them.
Which one's okay?
The no opt-out,
Yes.
no apologies, the hook, and explain everything. I think I really like to explain everything, making sure they, like when I think about like how I'm gonna have my class and what I'm gonna do as a teacher, I think about, I already love the subject, so I know I'm gonna explain just about everything, but not to the point where it's overwhelming for them, but make it exciting for them.
Well, how you explain it makes a big difference. How excited you feel about it, it does make a difference. I've seen people that explain mathematics in a very interesting manner that they make it fun, but they make it interesting, and it makes sense. Same content, another teacher.
Blah, 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 blah.
Dry. You think of Charlie Brown. I mean, seriously, and it was intelligent man, but finishing up his doctorate. It didn't make sense to me, so that makes a big difference. Yeah, being thorough when you explain it.
Because I mean, I have a photography club in the mornings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So like that, I mean, I love photography. I've done it for a long time, and I had to tell him the other day. I was like, man, I hate that I don't have more time with you guys because there's so much that I want to explain to you guys, and so much more I want to like show you guys, and like I was like, man, I wish I had you for 3 hours or like for 2 hours, but.
So they sense it. They sense the passion with the skill. And that's good. That's a great sign. Thank you, ma'am.
One of the ones that I liked was precise praise.
Precise praise, okay.
Because it's not the same just telling somebody, oh, you did a good job, or then actually.
Yes.
I mean, even us as adults, you would much rather at your job being told, this is what you're doing exceptionally. Yeah. This is what you're doing okay at. This is what needs work.
Yes.
And it's gives you something to work.
It happens because after a while it sounds fake. I was in a high school, and the person, the administrator, I was there, and I was helping her with something. Oh, you're awesome. Okay, thank you. And then another person walked into the room and gave her some information. Oh, you're awesome. Okay, and then like 3 or 4 people walked in. Everybody was awesome. Everybody was awesome. So how did
she learned a new word?
Yeah, it's like apparently everybody's awesome around here. Everybody was awesome in that school, but it didn't feel special anymore.
Say that.
It just didn't feel special. I have certain skills that I'm known for. More precisely in technology, I'm known for that, and I travel the district and I teach certain things. And people praise you, and that's wonderful. But that moment when I was in that office, it just didn't feel special anymore because it wasn't precise, and it was just everybody was getting the same praise. Awesome. Her word of the day was awesome. I walked out of there, and I don't know what happened. I went to the office. And I go, oh yeah, that's awesome. So I kept thinking the word stuck in my mind like a tune that sticks to your mind for the rest of the day. Everything was awesome. That and phenomenal. When people start using the word phenomenal, I start counting. I actually count. I have a colleague of mine, everything's phenomenal. 3-4 times a day.
I want to say fantastic.
Fantastic.
Everything was fantastic.
Yeah. John Jay's Rich on the radio, everything's awesome.
Oh, John Jay.
Yeah, everything's awesome. So you after a while it loses its value because you're overusing it. Precise praise, you know what? I really like the way you organize the notes. That's good. Thank you. Very precise, the task. I'm not telling you you're wonderful. I'm just telling you I like the way you did that. So for the students also, yeah, I like the way you wrote your paragraph this time. It was very descriptive. You had a lot of details. You did a great job on that paragraph.
Be authentic, right?
Be authentic, yeah.
I do that on the fluency test when they're done with it. Even the ones that don't need it as good, I always tell them like something positive.
On that specific time or that fluency specific test. Be genuine. Sound authentic. I had a teacher in one little school that I used to work at that she was happy being unhappy, one of those people. That even when she tried to be genuinely happy, it just looked fake. We didn't feel it. She would overdo it on the smile. It just didn't feel genuine.
It looked awkward.
It looked awkward. It was like Sheldon trying to give somebody a hug. And I actually experienced a Sheldon hug the other day. One of our main directors walked in and said, oh, thank you very much for the Lululemon, some sort of marathoning equipment that we got her for her boss's day. And she goes, I'm not a hugger. And then she started hugging everybody, and I was the last one in the room. So it was a very Sheldon hug. And if you watch Big Bang Theory, you know what I'm talking about. Very, very awkward. Thank you very much. But you know what? You don't want to overdo things because then it doesn't feel genuine. My sense of humor is very practical. I do it on purpose because I connect with a lot of movies. I connect with a lot of shows, a lot of anecdotes that I've experienced and I've become aware of. So I do it on purpose. But there comes a time that you have to use a different style. We try to switch it up. Okay, so if you genuine, authentic, that's always the best deal.
Were you talking about the yoga pants or something?
The yoga pants?
Yeah.
No, they're called Lululemons. Something. They're for marathoning people. They're like the high-end marathoning equipment, spandex stuff.
Yes.
Lululemon, something
Lululemon.
like that. Yeah, I would know. I'm a well-rounded individual.
And everyone pitched in to get that?
Yeah, everybody pitched in, I mean, I think we got her, with the card we got her, it was like $200. I think she could afford 2 pairs of pants. That's how expensive, it's the good stuff, let me put it down. Anyway, let me, a few others that I want to point out, which is the one, positive framing, precise praise, the J factor, knocking out, posted, shortest path, drawing the map, the herb, main says what, circular, keep moving, drawing this. I like the circulate, and I want you to make note of that, technique number 15. The circulate means that you are able to get around. I've actually witnessed teachers that set up the arrangement of the desks in a way that they themselves can't even get around. It doesn't help. So that guy in the back, it's unreachable because you placed barriers yourself, or you allowed it. So always think of this. How will you circulate when you're giving the independent work? How are you going to get around? Backpacks, I would not allow backpacks in the aisles because I almost tripped over some and something happened. So they would have to have it under their desk on purpose. So circulate that, and it's a simple idea. Make sure you're able to get around the room yourselves, okay? Obviously, the number 18, always be checking for understanding. Okay, did everybody get that? Do you have any questions? You might consider asking specific questions instead of saying, did you understand that? Because what's the kid gonna answer?
Yes.
Yes.
She's just gonna nod.
Sure, I understood it, So maybe when you're checking for understanding, ask a specific question. So tell me again how we do this, or tell me again what's the meaning of that word. Be precise. The wait time. Give students some time. Many times we get impatient and we'll ask a question, and if you don't answer, right away we go to the other person. There are times that you can give them maybe, about 5-6 seconds. And some teachers, what they do, they don't tell who they're going to ask. They'll just say, this is the question. They ask it, and then they go and they choose whoever's going to answer. Like a popsicle or Class Dojo. But they've already asked the question. They've already laid it out. What's the question? Okay, 5 seconds pass by. Now I'm going to decide, or now I'm going to find out who's going to answer it. But at least the kids have had 5 to I don't know, 10 seconds to think about it. Okay. Tight transitions. Many times when you finish one subject, if you're in elementary and you go from one subject to the next, you have to prepare, you have to, get the next book, get the next resources. You want to make sure that you have your stuff ready. If you're going to teach in a block schedule, like an hour and a half, you're going to have to switch lessons or switch activities several times, okay? So you want to have your manipulatives, your stuff ready so that you can transition to the next lesson smoothly, okay? You're doing science or math?
Science.
Science. So you have a lab, or you have a lesson, and now you're going to go into lab mode. Well, you want to have all your materials ready. You want to have the forms, the pencils, the beakers, and all that fun science stuff. You want to have it ready.
Right.
Because otherwise, if you're having to dig it up from the closets and all that, storage, you're already wasting time. You want to have it ready for the kids to go, okay, group 1, your equipment person, go get the stuff. Group 2, your equipment person, go get the stuff. So it's automatic. The transition time is not wasting time. Okay, that's what they mean by that. I had a great teacher in one of the schools I was at. that as she was talking and say, okay, you're gonna put your books away. She was ready to do, from reading, she was ready to go to math. She says, okay, 10 seconds. So as she was saying, as she was counting, 10 seconds, the kids were putting away their reading books, taking out their math book, taking out their folder, getting their pencils ready within 10 seconds, and she was actually doing the same thing and counting at the same time. So the transition time was 10 seconds. And she had it down to an art form. And the kids knew they had 10 seconds to put away the other stuff, take out the new book and the new notebook. But that's how she trained them, 10 seconds, okay? Things like that, transition times are important, folks. Think about that. Some of you may teach block, an hour and a half. An hour and a half is an eternity if you don't have the stuff ready. 45 minutes can also be an eternity if you don't have your stuff ready. But either way, I'm sure you'll work with that. And always ask for help, guys. If you're struggling with the planning, if you're struggling with the actual delivery, you really do need to think about that. Because if you don't ask for help, if you don't check yourself, you're going to struggle with that. And then on top of that, you're going to struggle with classroom management. It's going to be an issue. Okay? Hmm? Yeah, it happens.
You're saying to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Okay.
That's
yeah.
legit.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Who better to point it out than yourself? Be realistic about it. I've had principals that, oh, that's a terrible teacher. And my first thought is, well, that's your teacher. That's your teacher. So what are you doing about it? You're telling me that's because I visit schools. Oh, this teacher is just a terrible, and I go, and my first question is, at what? Because she can't be a terrible teacher at everything. What is she terrible at? And they'll tell me, well, she doesn't plan. Okay, so who checks her plans? Who sits with her and goes over the plans? Who is helping her with the plans? Because you just telling me that she's a terrible teacher planning, well, that doesn't help anybody. Okay? As a leader, you're going to have leaders that are very involved. I know that in your setting, there's a lot of mentoring and there's a lot of assistance in planning.
Yeah, there's coaching.
Coaching.
So she, one of the principals, whether it's assistant principal, they will do walkthroughs at least once a week.
Once a week.
And
I have teachers that do it, that get a walkthrough once a year.
And then there's the follow-up conference to discuss what was going on.
So they're coached and they're assisted throughout the process. They're not left alone.
Exactly.
In all fairness, guys, some of you may end up in schools that you are left alone. So it's going to be up to you to be very aware of your skill level, and if you need help, you need to ask. These are techniques that are pretty straightforward, and now you become more aware of them, and that's a paper for you to keep. But how you implement them is up to you, because some of you may be in schools that you're not going to be monitored as closely as that, and that's a wonderful example. Unfortunately, it's not the same everywhere.
It's Russia.
Yeah, I know schools. I know public schools that are also very, very targeted. I know public schools that are also like that because the principal has an instructional background, and they expect that from the teachers. The principal, and I have one in mind, she would be embarrassed to say that she has a bad teacher because it would reflect on her as a leader. Think of it this way. Would you ever say, I mean, I wouldn't want to say that, well, my children are terrible children. Well, wouldn't that reflect back on me as a parent? They learned it somewhere. Some of these, they learned it somewhere. Maybe, the ironic thing, the 5th grade teachers, and this is elementary, classic elementary, 5th grade blames 4th grade. 4th grade blames 3rd grade. 3rd grade blames 2nd grade. 2nd grade blames 1st grade. 1st blames kinder. Pre-K. Pre-K blames the parents. The wife blames the dad. And ultimately, it's the dad's fault.
Of course.
Of course. But everything trickles down, right?
Everything rolls downhill.
Everything trickles down, guys. But what I can tell you is ask for help. These techniques are helpful in the sense of managing your classroom and providing that instructional support. But if you're not comfortable, you're gonna have to speak up. The worst thing you can do is be the silent sufferer. I don't know if you've heard the term silent sufferer, because that's, at the end of the year, they're gonna ask you, so what happened? It's too late for you to say anything. Should have said it at the beginning. And they do sometimes assign a mentor, and some mentors are wonderful, and they'll tell you, this is how you do it, okay? Don't worry about this, this is what you're gonna do, this is what they expect, try it like this. But the mentor cannot be with you the whole time. So ideally, you want to either speak up, find, search, Google videos. I mean, you saw the videos on those techniques, and they modeled it for you. So I can understand people being silent sufferers back in the 80s when the internet was still not all there. But nowadays, you can Google any strategy, and you can visually see how it's supposed to be. And then you can act it out, practice it, try it out. If it works for you, wonderful. If it doesn't work for you, don't worry about it, okay? The last thing I want to cover, this is an actual dress code brochure. I want you, just at your leisure, review it, and just know that everyone is supposed to make sure that this is being followed. If everybody did their part, if all the administrators and all the teachers did their part, this would not be an issue. But unfortunately, you may have colleagues that don't cooperate because they'll say, it's not my job to watch these kids and how they dress. I'm here to teach. But if you think about it, we're supposed to be modeling the behavior, okay? We're supposed to be modeling the behavior, and as educators, we're gonna have our dress code also. There is a dress code for everyone. Yeah.
Now we're a Band-Aid right
here. Yeah. We have at the district level, we used to have a gentleman, always wore long sleeves. The one day I saw him, because it was super hot outside and he was doing something, big old sleeve, and I was surprised. But inside the building, always covered up. The
kids are, Mr. H, it's hot outside. Why are you wearing a jacket? Like today, because I'm wearing a short sleeve and I have to wear
one of my coworkers would buy the sleeves that they sell, like the
fake
athletes
ones?
use.
Yeah.
That just goes from like here to here.
Okay.
And so she would use that to cover up her tattoos.
I've seen the Band-Aids. I've seen the Band-Aids here. I've seen the Band-Aids here. Here. They're all over the place, A teacher, I had a teacher at a high school that at 4:05 or 4:10, whatever, she would put it on and walk out the door. But during the day, it came off.
Yeah, mine's come off too.
I actually have a pair of those, the little cylinder cone shaped looking things. They're like they're about this, they look like little Christmas trees. I confiscated them about 10 years ago. I still have them. I left. Don't ask me why. It was.
Sir, on this dress code, do they enforce?
They're supposed to. They're supposed to enforce it.
Really?
But not everybody pitches in.
Yeah,
So the child is walking down the hallway. Five rooms, goes through 5 rooms. Nobody says anything. The 6th room, the teacher says, "Hey, you're out of dress code."
No. Well, the reason that I ask is because on number 14.
Let's see. Number 14. Male students shall not be allowed to wear female attire.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Okay, well, the reason I ask is because of one of the high schools, there's a transgender.
That's
And
interesting.
He wears female clothes.
Wow. This one is dated, I'm trying to find the date. It was approved in 98. So I would want to get the new one. I would want to get the new one and find out.
Last year, when I was a school nurse, they would allow him to go to the nurse's office for the restroom because it was a big issue.
Yes.
So if they're enforcing this,
Yeah.
I never saw it.
We'll have to dig we'll have to dig the new one because things change. I know that I was in a conference in Austin and I was about to walk into the restroom and there's a big sign. Please choose the restroom that you feel most comfortable with your identity. What?
What?
I took a picture of it. I was there taking a picture of it. something about my comfort level and which restroom I felt I identified with the most.
Yeah, because
and I'm like, no, it's there's no thinking here. That's where I'm going. You know?
Yeah, in Austin, in some clubs and stuff like that, it's a co-ed bathroom.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, there are exceptions to pretty much any policy.
Yeah, you're always going to have issues. How your school handles it, always, if you're uncertain, talk to your administration and say, hey, how do you want me to handle this? Because they're supposed to provide that guidance.
Right.
You know? Well, I'm going to dig up the new one to see if it's been updated. Thank you for pointing that out. I wasn't aware of that student, but you know what? There's always exceptions.
I imagine there's more than one, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, because now they're socially acceptable, so where does that really fall? That's
one of the big things that I've always picked up on is, so long as it doesn't distract from instruction.
That's how I feel.
You know, that you don't distract the instruction, because that's what you're there for, instruction. You to give it, the students to receive it, and learning to take place. And there are instances that everything's cool, everybody's cool, and there's learning going on, and yet there's other instances where it becomes a distraction, and some students might cause problems. So those are very particular examples, and that's where the administration needs to be approached and asked, how do you want me to handle this? Okay, very particular questions. Any other questions to wrap it up, folks? It's gonna be a great weekend. I know I'm gonna have a great weekend. You know, I will see you on Monday. We're gonna wrap it up, and then after that, the next time you'll see me will be the interview session that one of you all, not me, one of you all is gonna get interviewed. Okay? Have a great night, guys. We'll see you on Monday. Laredo, thank you very much. You all were excellent you were awesome. Okay, you all participated. I really liked it, Laredo. Thank you for answering questions and sharing. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You were awesome.
Awesome. That's gonna be that word.
Awesome.